Welcome to the February 2026 Steam Next Fest Showcase, where the indie gaming world takes center stage. This event is one of the very few moments when smaller developers truly have a chance to shine, hopefully without being overshadowed by major corporate releases. Instead of focusing on the usual headliners, this showcasing will be diving into the hidden gems that might not be on your radar yet, but absolutely deserve your attention. These games represent the heart of indie development, built with passion, experimentation, and a clear creative vision that often goes unnoticed for years. I personally curated this list throughout the entire month of February, each and every day carefully reviewing thousands of demos manually, playing through hundreds each and every day, all to circumvent algorithmic bias for each upcoming release, to see every game with its own identity and also potential. This showcasing is not about what is currently trending. This is about games that are doing something interesting, risky, or genuinely new, while also being fun to play or simply a decent game. This is what these events are meant to celebrate. And of course, with all of these numerous events layered on top of each other like Horse Fest, Turn-Based Thursday, RPG Fest, and countless others along with Steam Next Fest, it has become increasingly more challenging to identify the true standouts. I would like to point out that all games featured here have been thoroughly vetted by myself to ensure that they contain no generative AI usage. This includes their code, visuals, music, translations, and even their capsule art. Because if you are not directly involved in making the game, coding the game, creating and hiring real talent for your project, I personally believe you do not belong on this list, nor do you have the right to call yourself an indie developer. No excuse be that for charity or time constraints will ever justify this, nor will trying to deceive me or others for your own personal gain. With Steam's new AI disclosure policies, it's easier than ever to identify handcrafted projects that highlight the genuine effort of developers. This makes this showcase even more important because the games featured here are made by developers. I found that some still did refuse to disclose the use of AI in their games. If you can recognize the patterns, it's not that difficult to distinguish the real from the artificial, albeit some are a lot more difficult than others. Since this is a showcasing, we won't be delving too deeply into each title unless there is something really notable to discuss. So it'll be a quick dip in and dip out. We also won't simply splice together a list of trailers without any context to follow them. Each demo featured here will be followed by a brief commentary to give you a clearer idea of what to expect while showcasing our very own gameplay footage. Most demos last between 10 and 30 minutes, so realistically there is only so much that can be said and showcased, so please bear with me. Even if you can't afford to purchase a game but think it's great, don't forget to add them to your wish list. This is the best way to support and boost an indie developer's visibility. So without further distractions, let's dive into this feature-length showcase of the best of Winter 2026 Steam Next Fest and celebrate the indie titles that stood out, each in their own special ways. Not exactly a strong start, I know. I personally have not played AFK Journey, mainly because I tend to avoid mobile games. However, it is still clearly popular. I noticed their upcoming title AFK Journey Homestead before Steam Next Fest, and in this game you manage a farm by checking in hourly or daily, building up your resources, unlocking new buildings and upgrades, and sending your characters out on more AFK journeys. These characters come from the gacha system, which is typical for the genre. Normally, I wouldn't really recommend games like this, as the first hour is challenging, filled with constant microtransaction pop-ups and a mobile-focused layout that really should have been redesigned for PC. I believe a point-and-click interface would have made much more of a significant difference. That being said, it is strange to admit that I just couldn't stop playing it. I genuinely had to pull myself away. I was hunting for specific characters, that being the wolf and the hyena, and when I pulled them both back to back, it motivated me to keep going. But that's how these games get you. You gather your resources, you build, you engage in AFK activities, and it requires extremely low effort. But it's also surprisingly engaging when you have some form of goal or interest to carry you through it, be that the care of the story or player characters. So, sure, I can see how somebody might lose interest in this game, as normally I am the type of person who wouldn't be that interested. All I can really say is that I wish this PC version wasn't a direct mobile port, but a proper PC UI and controls with more diversity in character design rather than just these generic female or male options. But if it did receive these functionalities, it would be a lot more easy to recommend. However, for those who enjoy the mobile scene, I can definitely see the appeal. I could see the vision that Airframe Ultra was aiming for: intense vehicle combat, racing, PvP, chaotic destruction, and the pure nostalgia all blended into a circuit that felt intriguing yet also confusing. It seemed like a mashup of too many ideas at once, but also it still seemed to work. That being the low poly visuals were reminiscent of Road Rash 64 combined with the elements from Wave Race 64, such as using your melee combat while mounted on a bike. Some of the gunplay and arena chaos felt surprisingly similar to Metal Carnage, with a lot of shifting locations and also traditional races, all layered together in a very disorganized but also engaging format. I could understand what the game was trying to be, like a sort of alternative version of S4 League, but with bikes and a large open world to navigate and compete in. But I just kept feeling like something was terribly off in how balanced everything was. The lack of a minimap certainly didn't help. Being ganged up on in such tight, fast-paced arenas made this navigation even more difficult as you got blasted by multiple players. Despite all of these issues, I really liked what I was seeing here. I just hope that Akupara Games can improve the navigation aspects because right now it felt genuinely confusing to approach. If you haven't heard about Alabaster Dawn, now is the perfect time to discover it. Seriously, do not skip out on this game. I don't care who you are. It stood out as the most impressive JRPG at Steam Next Fest. Absolutely no contest. From the very moment you launch this game, you are bombarded from every single direction with deep storylines, stunning visuals, captivating music, rich lore, and deep combat mechanics. Everything feels intentionally crafted with care and exudes this confidence that you never see anywhere else. The game doesn't ease you in, it grips you and it propels you to a perpetual tunnel of raising stakes, continuously building tension with each and every new element that it introduces. There are genuine goosebump moments that send shivers down your spine. Do you know how rare that sensation is when it comes to JRPGs these days? Forget your traditional turn-based combat. This game features real-time hack and slash action, and it's done right. The combat feels responsive and layered on top of one another, not just placed down for extra diversity. Just take a moment to appreciate how smooth these animations are. Weapons are more than just stat sticks, they interact with the world around you, with the puzzles, featuring a complex elemental system that is much deeper than what most indie studios would even try to attempt. The multi-layered design is everywhere, creating truly jaw-dropping moments. Alabaster Dawn channels the spirit of every single classic that you can think of, Suikoden and Breath of Fire for one, while showcasing the modern visual craftsmanship of Octopath Traveler and its story. It understands what makes each era special, and it pushes forward instead of merely copying one or the other. I'm genuinely at a loss for words here. What stands out the most is the game's confidence. The pacing respects your ability to keep up, and the soundtrack knows when to swell and how to blend seamlessly into the world, avoiding these sudden interruptions that can feel disjointed when you're in the moment. This is the kind of game that makes you pause, sit back, and simply experience it. Trust me, if you're looking for a redefining JRPG, this is finally it. And wouldn't you know it, it's no surprise as to why. It's because it's the developers of Crosscode. Fantastic work all around. Alma makes its debut at Steam Next Fest as a stylish Metroidvania with a sexy twist, maybe a bit too sexy, that being its romance systems. However, in the demo, the focus remained firmly on the action. Here you play as Jack, a former commander of the Neo-Barcelona Crusaders, after refusing to carry out mass genocide. The government now wants you erased. This sets up for a clean introduction to a story with immediate repercussion. Mechanically, the game features all the elements that you would expect from this genre, that being tight platforming, multi-layered mobility upgrades, and of course combat and ability gating that encourages you to re-explore previous areas in search of hidden secrets. The game understands that structure all too well, and the soundtrack is engaging and propels the encounters while giving the world a distinctive personality. Visually, I'd say the game leans heavily into flair with bold and sometimes strange enemy designs intended to stand out. Combat here does feel fast and aggressive, however, the parry mechanic still needs a bit of refinement, as the timing window does feel off, whether due to animation delays or input responsiveness. Something here just doesn't quite sync up. In a game that emphasizes precision, this is a critical aspect that needs a lot of attention, and thankfully, it's the only issue. The writing here is still strong, even if it was a limited demo. You can see their ambition. The dialogue is well rounded, and the story shows a promising initial direction. It's a game that is worth keeping an eye on, especially if these romance systems receive more development with the full release, or if what was showcased in this trailer is simply a bunch of fan service.
An outsider has arrived on our shores. Repair or destroy. Welcome to ArdenFall, traveler.
It's not all that often that a game captures the same sense of exploration that defined the Elder Scrolls series, but ArdenFall comes surprisingly close, if not almost identically. That's because the influence of Morrowind is immediately recognizable, even without prior knowledge that it is inspired by it. I was surprised to learn that this demo has been available since early 2022. However, I only recently heard about it when it popped up in our feed. From the stat-based skill checks to intimidation to survival systems, questing, exploration, thievery, stealth, and summoning, everything here feels similar and familiar in the best way possible. There's even a political system with choices that have consequences. I felt an overwhelming urge to stop, scan the horizon, poke into every corner, and hunt for gear and weapons as I was constantly drawn deeper into this world. If you're a fan of the Elder Scrolls series, you won't want to miss out on this, though I would curb your expectations just to keep yourself safe, as I was personally disappointed by the limited selection of races, as I would have loved to see more factions and choices beyond just elves and dwarves. The action roguelike genre is far too oversaturated, with many games relying on unlocks to artificially adjust the difficulty, and Astrolite eliminates this issue entirely, as it takes inspiration from classic Asteroid-style shooting games and features a clean, minimalistic presentation. Players have a small selection of ships, and that is rather unfortunate, with basic stat progression and minimal weapon variety, with everything in the demo unlocked in a very linear fashion. So there's no need to chase builds or rely on an overpowered modifier. Each ship here has its own cooldowns, movement patterns, and abilities, providing enough variety without making things overly complicated. While it might seem basic at first glance, the gameplay is actually surprisingly enjoyable, which is what truly matters. It's a game that invites players to jump in quickly, get straight to the action, and engage in simple, low-commitment gameplay. There is certainly room for a lot of improvement, but that's probably not on the developer's mind, which is understandable. After about 2 hours, you might find that the gameplay becomes far too repetitive to continue playing, but I feel like that's okay.
Yeah, it's called Don't Die. And when the bullets aren't enough, you adapt. Hello. By any means necessary. Coming soon to Steam.
It's no surprise that Australia did it with Make This List. I'm just personally surprised that it released as a demo so soon. Don't let the introduction overwhelm you, as it looks more complex than it actually is. You control as many units as you can afford, while defending your train as it stops to gather resources before heading back out into the open-ended tower defense territory. The main interest here lies in linking, merging, and mutating all of your units. You buy units at level 1, merge them to level 2, and then repeat that process to reach level 3 by merging 2 level 2 units until you need to extract, which then leaves you with a limited amount of time and also space to leave on the train. Every time you merge, it creates something new. For example, if you merged a gunslinger together with a gunslinger, you would get something that fires 6 times, and then you can merge that into a stacking elemental build, or combine it with an AoE unit to apply explosive damage on each and every shot. However, I did find it a bit disappointing that there are some restrictions here. For instance, stacking the radiation effect or explosions only trigger once per action, even if you did shoot an enemy 6 times, which does limit your builds. Still, these combinations of turn-based survival mechanics, rotating walls, mutant hordes, and this long journey to your next destination creates a genuinely fresh mix of systems. The possibilities are nearly endless as you push your greed further or aim to escape as quickly as possible. A great title for all the fans of turn-based strategy and deep unit customization. We'll be seeing many incremental clones, which is something that cannot be avoided. This subgenre is currently gaining a lot of attention, as I observed hundreds of these games. but very few truly stood out. BastionOS was notably more atmospheric than most. Starting from a military station, players engage by slowly firing your weapons at the incoming enemies, unlocking new systems and pushing back the expanding army of enemies in various shapes. The game encourages active participation rather than sitting idle, offering strong incentives to stay engaged. Its relaxing atmosphere and satisfying sound effects contributed to a focused and immersive atmosphere. While there may be many games in this genre, we approach them without bias. Ultimately, what matters is that it was fun to play, even though highly contested with a lot of slop. Blade of Wiz is a basic reimagining of Hades. It features the fast gameplay and the enhanced mechanics, particularly with the ability to stunlock enemies permanently, which of course is a problem when it's also elites and even bosses. I found it enjoyable despite all of its flaws. You play as a fallen knight from an order cursed during battle and abandoned by your commanding officer. Unable to die and unable to return home, you are trapped in an endless cycle of death and rebirth, while searching for a way to break from this foul curse. While it closely resembles Hades, it's less polished overall. However, it still does offer sufficient build diversity and twists to warrant a playthrough if you're craving a game in that style. Despite the lower quality, I managed to find a lot of enjoyment in what it had to offer.
I was silence before Blade learned to speak. Tell me, what metal are you made of?
Blades of Fire stood out for one reason above all else: the smithing system. In this game, you don't just pick up the loot, you forge your own weapons. They are temporary, degrade over time, and can also break. This mechanic forces you to constantly rethink your arsenal, refine your craft, and aim for higher quality builds each time you return to the forge. The better the blade, the longer it will last, and the quality directly affects its longevity. This is what gives the game its identity. Weapons here have weight, durability matters, and their forms shift between piercing and slashing with the click of a button. There is intention behind every swing. The Hammer of the Gods empowers you to craft increasingly legendary weapons, keeping you curious about what next tier might unlock and how you can shape it. However, I feel like the combat itself is where things become a bit shaky. Playing with a keyboard and mouse can feel very awkward, especially concerning the key bindings. In contrast, using a controller feels far more natural and is clearly the intended way to play. Additionally, the intro cutscenes lack some form of impact, and the flow of combat could use some tightening. A few additional mechanics, perhaps reactive moments, or just better encounter pacing could greatly enhance it. There is this faint echo of God of War in this game, but it's presented from a different perspective. Instead of playing as Kratos, you take on the role of the forger, crafting the weapons that gods and warriors depend on. You support the myth from behind the anvil. It's not a terrible experience, far from it. The foundation is strong because the core idea is designed well. If the full release sharpens combat and presentation as skillfully as you sharpen the very steel that you work with, then this could become something memorable. Really, only time will tell. Yep, it's another idler. Clickers typically do not offer much depth, but if you can appreciate the satisfying experience of watching big numbers increase, then Bones and Coins is definitely worth a try. In this game, you will explore dungeons, clicking on the enemies and treasures, collecting resources, and even hiring adventurers to assist you on your quest. This allows for more of the chaos to unfold. As you acquire better gear to create synergies, the game escalates, leading to this exhilarating experience of defeating hordes of enemies at the tick of a duration at the later stages. The gameplay is ridiculously simple, but also loud and oddly satisfying, especially when the various systems start to stack and the screen fills with a flurry of numbers and effects. This type of game is perfect for those looking for a mindlessly idle yet enjoyable flair of numbers with minimal effort required. It can be very challenging to explain how this game is fun to those unfamiliar to the genre, as while it may lack complexity, it gives you something to engage with on a mental level. I also just like the visual minimalism. These low-poly skeletons and adventurers moving around the screen create this clean, rustic aesthetic that complements the gameplay well. doesn't take much to captivate cat lovers, and Bruma makes it nearly impossible to resist. Using watercolor-style visuals beautifully portrays Luna and her owner in a world overtaken by robots and shrouded in a mysterious fog that dulls the senses and erases memories. Here you play as Luna throughout different stages of her life, hunting, exploring, solving light puzzles, and immersing yourself in a carefully crafted world that feels quietly abandoned. As your memories gradually fade, you discover fragments scattered throughout the environment and return them to the elderly woman, piecing together a story of loss, decay, and companionship in a world that seems to have moved on without them. Sad, but cute.
Finish!
Bunny Beats simplifies a genre like Rhythm Haven by removing the randomness, allowing players to focus on replicating the beat of a highlighted bunny to score points. The demo was somewhat limited, offering only 3 stages: tutorial, single, and event mode. I completed them all easily across most difficulties, including the hardest, which left me wanting more challenge. My main concern here was the timing, as it felt overly forgiving when hitting the beat slightly off, allowing for missed notes to still score points. This created the sensation of potential input lag or an underlying issue that needs to be fine-tuned. Additionally, each stage was very brief, consisting of only 3 rotations before finishing up and unlocking you into the high scores. As a fan of rhythm games, I like the concept and I would love to see how it develops further with more modes and a more competitive scene. It's a simple game where you just listen, repeat, and accumulate the rewards. But knowing how things go, it'll probably turn out to be underwhelming.
Don't leave till all the boys are out! Why are you tormenting me?
This will likely be the only biased game recommendation on this list, and for good reason, as not many people know about my personal roots. The Caribou Trail tells a World War story featuring the Canadian Newfoundlander Regiment and follows the story of 3 brothers inspired by real events and adapted from a dramatized series of eyewitness testimonials and moments from the front lines directly, rather than through Hollywood or movies. As a lifetime Newfoundlander, I noticed that the game doesn't fully capture the rich Newfoundlandese accents and dialects. While it does incorporate some common phrases, they are often used in slightly incorrect context. Those from Newfoundland will likely catch these nuances, while others may find it passes without need for concern. I have a genuine interest in World War narratives, even though many tend to glorify their own respective countries or veer into propaganda. The demo itself was somewhat limited, mainly focusing on the introduction of the brothers through walking around. It felt familiar and resonated with a sense of home. This connection made me eager to experience the full story, which appeared to hold promise for those interested in the lesser-known aspects of history. After seeing the earlier gameplay footage and teasers for Cathedral, Crow's Curse, I was really excited, especially since I enjoy stealth and rogue-style games. Here you play as an assassin in a vast Metroidvania world, relying on stealth and precision to eliminate your enemies in instant kills, parries, and dodges. Additionally, there are puzzles, traversal mechanics, and special abilities and weapons that you will unlock as you make progress, which is typical for this genre, though it's quite unfortunate that it didn't showcase a whole lot, as the demo ended just before what seemed to be the boss battle, so I didn't really have a chance to experience that aspect of the game. However, up until that point, I was having a great time, as the platforming was smooth, the gameplay felt stable and responsive, and in general, it was a nice experience. I've played a few games similar to Cinderia over the years, particularly during previous Steam Next Fest events. It is a hack-and-slash roguelike that allows you to move through various biomes quickly, featuring diverse builds, enjoyable combos, and challenging bosses. The game includes familiar elements from this genre, such as 4 playable classes, small minigames, and a variety of ranged, melee, and magical abilities. There's also plenty of flair to keep things engaging as you battle your way through arenas filled with monsters and elites. While I found enough unlockable content to encourage multiple replay incentives, it did occasionally feel far too repetitive. Although it may not be the best hack and slash game I've played, it's definitely up there as it hits the right notes. As a big fan of rhythm games, I found Close to Light to be interestingly different. It combines memory-based positioning with rhythm gameplay requiring players to follow the beat, through simplistic black and white visuals while avoiding the darkness and maintaining precise timing by staying in the center. It's a game that is very challenging, as it ranks among my favorite rhythm games that prioritizes speed and accuracy over a simple spectacle, without feeling sluggish or excessively difficult. The soundtracks here are fantastic, and the inclusion of a leaderboard adds a lot of competitive edge. I know many people who are deeply invested in this genre, and I hope that they find this game as enjoyable as Oz and other mouse-based speed rhythm games. I certainly did, even though it was quite the short length of a demo. I'm eager to experience more. Do you enjoy cozy strategic puzzle games? Then CloudSpan might just be the perfect fit for you. In this game, you receive a deck of randomized pieces and are then tasked with building a tall town and city on an island terrain, all while ensuring nothing collapses. The game ends once you lose too many pieces. Your motivation to play can vary, as it can stem from a personal goal, a desire to overcome boredom, or just the challenge of pushing your limits. You can create chain combo effects, accumulate points, and test how long you can survive in this casual city builder. Think of it more like a puzzler that just lets you mellow out and relax for a while. Coco Boy captures the essence of the past, fully immersing players in a nostalgic world. Here you play as a kid in the late 80s, navigating both the advantages and limitations of that era, as the game builds its identity around many references to those times. It's a game that's incorporating a lot of clever era-appropriate mechanics, such as tilting your game cartridge to overcome challenges and to also solve puzzles, searching in-game forums for hints, purchasing merchandise and memorabilia, and even homebrewing your console to cheat your way forward. It is a puzzle platformer that treats retro culture as a fundamental mechanic rather than just an aesthetic, as you pull yourself away from the screen to enjoy what you have in this world. This commitment to the theme is reflected through the game itself, from its promotional material to its cartoon-inspired visuals, reinforcing this whole retro tone. This type of immersion resonated with me. It wasn't just about its performance, but rather the playful and inventive ideas that it was presenting to me. The biggest disappointment, however, is the length of this demo, as it ends just as the systems are beginning to open up, leaving a very strong impression and a clear desire for more. The game is clever, intuitive, and confident in its own identity, making its early cutoff feel more like a well-placed teaser that gives enough to leave you curious but not enough to satisfy you. I really don't find myself playing platformers all that much, as many of them tend to blend together with similar themes. Some are better than others, and only a few of them truly experiment enough to stand out beyond their visuals or stories. However, Croak drew me in with its physical platforming, as it's a stage-based, brightly colored 2D platformer that offers a fast-paced leap through fun challenges. The game introduces several intriguing twists on concepts commonly found in the genre, and the story is charming and oddly reminds me a lot of Cuphead, though it operates on a much simpler scale. Fighting the boss and bouncing through stages and also seeking out hidden secrets made it very hard for me to put the game down with how goofy our little frog hero behaves.
Where to, Sherlock?
My friend, we're going to solve a mystery that will take us on a journey through space and time.
What makes you say that?
The script, Watson, the script.
What are you even talking about, Holmes?
I don't have the faintest idea.
Draw Me a Pixel has made a huge comeback after several years, presenting a classic point-and-click adventure that feels like it was pulled straight out of Sierra or LucasArts games. With Crush in Time, featuring Sherlock Holmes and Watson in tow, the game has a bunch of storybook visuals and puzzles that reward curiosity. Players are encouraged to interact with everything, explore every detail, and gradually piece together the logic behind each scene so you can move forward. While the story itself may seem a bit bland, the game itself is full of charm, clever puzzle design, and a continuous stream of jokes and character banter that enhances the experience throughout each visual segment. If you grew up playing games like King's Quest, Sam & Max, or even Monkey Island, then this will be wholesome comfort food. The elastic interaction system adds a bit of flair, and the minigames are quite enjoyable. While the overall structure itself is linear, the quality of the writing and the voice acting does make it worthwhile to continue playing just to see what unfolds next. If you have a fondness for classic adventure games with personality, I highly recommend downloading the demo, as it's short, clever, and sure to provide you with a delightful experience. Cursed Words combines the core ideas of Balatro with crossword puzzles to create a spelling experience like no other. Although I'm not the best at literature or spelling out lengthy niche vocabulary when it comes to tricky vowels, I still found Cursed Words genuinely entertaining. The game challenges your mind in a way that feels engaging rather than overly random. One of the great aspects of this game is its relaxed pace. There's no pressure or time limits. You are given a minimum of 5 turns to spell words, while managing combo effects to survive each and every encounter. This is actually another subgenre of another genre that's been kicking up dirt in 2026. When you win or fail, you can spend your rewards on new powers and effects, gradually customizing your deck with different rarities. You can then push your build as far as possible before it inevitably falls apart. The success of this game lies in how it allows both your strategy and vocabulary to shape the experience. This can be surprisingly satisfying or very disappointing, especially if, like me, you struggle with the literacy and find it difficult to come up with words longer than 6 letters. The difficulty here ramps up rather quickly, meaning that the better you are at spelling, the more chances you have at succeeding. Eventually, if you aren't equipped with the right deck or vocabulary, failure becomes unavoidable. Now, there was one significant issue that I find hilarious but also highly unfortunate, as the game itself is called Cursed Words. Addressing this does not change the fact that I like the game, as the game's demo was promptly taken down after I pointed out to the developer that their banner featured a racial slur, prominently displayed with a hard R. Now that is very unfortunate that they missed this, but let's hope that the future iterations go more smoothly for them, as the gameplay itself was still good enough to enjoy. This is really interesting. CurseMark was a huge surprise for me. I don't expect that you've heard about Collide Games, but they developed one of my favorite action roguelikes in the previous years, Into the Necrovale. I still haven't reviewed that game yet, as it is sitting on my backlog, but that game was phenomenal when it initially released. The depth of builds, the replay value of the bosses, everything felt perfect, especially for somebody who was deeply invested in Path of Exiles for so long. However, issues arose when I started exploiting that game. We managed to break the systems entirely and even crash the game, leading to many of these arenas being deleted entirely in milliseconds. Eventually, Collide Games had to patch out the broken builds to resolve these problems, which did lower the fun overall. Fast forward to today, and they've essentially reformatted Necrovale into a new title called CurseMark. It retains the same core identity, but offers so much more build diversity. Instead of being limited to just a few runs and a few skills, there are now many more options available. Additionally, the progression system is designed to encourage constant replay value and physical engagement, something the original game did struggle with. That being said, I noticed some of the same issues that carried over from the first game. There's still a lot of lag, there's still a lot of broken builds that persist, and there's a tendency for players to spam the same powerful combos such as blind and multi-strike, layered multiple times to prevent bosses and elites from ever touching you. This seems more like a developer balance issue than anything else. But if they manage to handle this like they did with Necrovale, but toning it back a little bit by patching and balancing these builds over time, this could certainly turn into a significant upgrade over the original game. I'm really looking forward to it. Lately, we've been seeing a series of co-op games, which have most focused on party-style, casual, and chaotic gameplay. While that can be enjoyable in its own right, it often fails to hold my personal interest, as I prefer co-op games that offer real action, replay value, and objectives that extend just beyond messing around with your friends in goofy or disgusting ways. Darkswarm delivered exactly what I was looking for. It features lobby-based action where players can jump in at any time and take on hordes of undead, either solo or with others. The game includes objectives to complete, extraction mechanics, character leveling, gear unlocking, and the options to increase the difficulty for a bigger challenge. Unfortunately, many players likely missed out on this during the last alpha event, and that's unfortunately a shame. I had a fantastic time with it regardless. The game encourages friendly teamwork, has clear defining roles, and incorporates tower defense elements alongside extraction mechanics. It's reminiscent of a toned-down version of Helldivers from a top-down perspective. While it's not brutally difficult, it remains engaging enough to keep it fun and worth replaying. The game still needs a lot of work, but overall, it did offer a pleasant top-down horde experience that you can play with your friends. Dead Watch satisfies the craving for Danganronpa-style mystery, but without the ending that falls apart. In this game, you find yourself in a limited time loop surrounded by a cast of loud and eccentric characters with the goal of preventing a murder. If you fail, you reset and try again, gradually piecing together the mystery of the situation. It's a game that embraces this death survival mystery as an integral part of the experience rather than feeling like a chore. While the demo had a minimal presentation, it also demonstrated confidence in its own design. It provides clear puzzle elements, comedic writing, and characters that make you want to save everyone, fostering player attachment instead of driving you to rush towards the ending. Multiple endings keep the gameplay engaging, and each run feels purposeful rather than just filler. However, since the story is linear, there may not be much value once experienced one time. If you enjoy time loop mysteries, branching narratives, and quirky characters that need your protection, Dead Watch is more interesting than you might initially expect it to be. One of the best co-op experiences during this event was Deep Dish Dungeon, which is clearly a play on Delicious in Dungeon, as the concept aligns well. You and your friends will navigate through dungeons while juggling base building, crafting recipes, solving puzzles, and managing smithing mechanics to unlock doors, defeat bosses and elite enemies, and to survive by keeping track of your hunger and also hydration. One particular design choice was that torches can act as infinite light sources when mounted, but degrade when held. So I do hope this changes, as resource management would feel more immersive if lighting had a greater impact in this regard. Everything else here, however, was solid. I'd say it was a fun time to play with friends, and this is significant considering I often find most co-op games, especially horror variants, tacky and way too oversaturated as slop, making them difficult to enjoy without a specific hook beyond the influence of social media. You've got to be familiar with Dench Attack. You know it's been a popular project in development for a long time. In the simplest way of explaining it, it combines everything that people love about the original Tony Hawk games, and also Jet Set Radio, featuring excellent soundtracks and capturing that classic era where developers aim to create fresh and innovative experiences that blew your minds. In Dench Attack, you play as a Dench Attacker, racing across railroad tracks as a train while battling enemies and scoring extra points through impressive tricks like nose grinds, manuals, kickflips, and aerial stunts as you speed towards the finish line. The energy of this game is truly captivating. Does it make sense? Why should that matter? It's fun, and that's what matters the most. After creating one of the best deck-building roguelike strategy games of 2025, I did not expect to hear from Penguinauts so soon. They achieved something difficult and nearly unthinkable, re-releasing their game with completely reversed roles. Some might call that cheating, but I think it's actually pretty smart. Dice Vaders is Space Vaders, but with an exciting new twist. In this game, you play as the invaders, aiming to overthrow Earth and eliminate its defenders through incremental progression similar to Balatro. So, yeah, they jumped on the bandwagon for sure. You line up your dice, build your army, chain combo multipliers, collect relics, stack alien offenses, and then seek to take over humanity in a stationary grid-based test of your knowledge of combos. The game is increasingly challenging and also a lot of fun. If you haven't played the original concept yet, you still have time to check out Space Vaders before Dice Vaders finally launches. The original game is highly regarded for a reason, both by me and the entire community, because everything it does well. Ever since I played a game about digging a hole, I've been drawn to similar titles that capture the essence of progression, even if that gameplay loop can become extremely repetitive. Dig fits perfectly in that category. It's repetitive, sure, but it leaves a good impression. You'll play as a mole digging deep into a crater to uncover what happened to your people who once lived there. At its core, yes, it is an incremental game, so you'll dig for a while, unlock new content, reset to the surface, and then dig deeper on your next run. Rinse and repeat. Yeah, that's probably far too repetitive for most people, but I still find this oddly satisfying. Despite this structure, the game is surprisingly relaxing. There's something comforting about this simplicity and the steady forward momentum. I did encounter a few bugs during my playthrough, but the developers responded very quickly to my feedback, which really shows that they care about maintaining a stable environment for you to enjoy. It doesn't aim to be anything more than it needs to be. It's calm, intentionally repetitive, and focused on delivering a clear dig and progress loop, and it succeeds in exactly that. Directory Dungeon is easily one of the most interesting titles that I've played here. It featured a simple yet ambitious concept, framing a classic text-based adventure within your actual computer file system rather than a traditional game engine. In this game, you'll navigate folders as dungeon paths and open files to uncover your loot, face enemies, receive messages, and to find options for traversal, all while managing your gear and healing along the way, all within the comfort of your computer's files. While that can be confusing at first, spending more time with it makes the idea click, and once that happens, the design becomes genuinely fun. My main curiosity lies in how this concept could evolve with future development. The foundation is very good, but the lack of visuals and auditory elements feels like an aspect that should be further developed. What we're talking about here is adding in music, sound design, and even more of these minimal visual reinforcements shaped with inside of your files. This could elevate the experience significantly more, making it a lot more fresh. Even something as simple as ASCII-style visuals or a very small box-based display with vaguely pixelated imagery could enhance this clarity and atmosphere during the encounters without sacrificing the text-first identity or done through the folders themselves, like how it showcases your health and player model. While this may sound counterproductive for a purely text-driven adventure, the potential here is enormous. Subtle visual framing could only add a lot more depth, tension, and personality to what is already a clever concept.
I work for Drill and Delve. I don't even remember going down for this job. But this mine... There's something weird about this mine.
I discovered Drill and Delve by asking around in indie and publishing communities for hidden demos that often get overlooked during these events. This game immediately caught my attention. In this game, you are trapped within a mine on a planet where gravity is constantly shifting. One moment you're walking normally, the next you're tumbling sideways or upside down as the environment rotates around you in zero gravity, making it very difficult to progress in a straight line. While this may sound chaotic, it creates an interesting exploration experience, similar to that of a Metroidvania, where you need to progress to get restricted items until you can upgrade your gear incrementally. So you'll be drilling through the rocks, listening for the signs of life or machinery, managing your oxygen and power supplies, upgrade your equipment, and map your surroundings using your visor UI, and this game feels more like a survival adventure rather than another mindless mining game, with a story and voice acting that motivates you to keep moving forward, even when you're all alone. Initially, the shifting gravity can feel disorienting. However, you quickly realize that this is the core puzzle of the entire game. You are forced to think in layers, track your position, and plan your route in 3 dimensions. Navigating through the environment becomes the main challenge since you can never be certain as to which way you are currently facing. The goal for you is to get to the top, and death will occur frequently, which can diminish your tension as it gives the game an arcade-like feel, but the concept is still strong enough to maintain your interest. So if you're looking for a mining game that offers more twists, this is one of the more intriguing surprises from this event. Dark Side of the Moon is a charming and well-designed game that offers plenty of freedom to move in the depths of space. Imagine Super Mario Galaxy, but on a obviously much lighter and relaxed scale. You play as a fluffy little duck pilot who crash lands on a planet and needs help repairing the ship by completing quests for the quirky residents scattered throughout this part of space. The game was a simple, cozy, and genuinely delightful waddle through space. It doesn't demand much from you. Instead, it invites you on a relaxing journey through space involving casual exploration and lighthearted puzzle discovery. It's perfect for those who appreciate the simpler things in life. Echo Isle is essentially a mirror image of The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past and Link's Awakening. That comparison is unavoidable as these games serve as its inspiration. However, Echo Isle introduces some interesting twists, as the demo allowed you to hop between platforms and navigate around enemies using the default movement controls rather than requiring an item or upgrade to unlock that mobility. This feature is seamlessly integrated into the movement, which makes the game feel faster and more playful right from the start instead of feeling padded or restrictive. It feels like you're fully in control from the very start. I don't really have much to say about this game because it was a 10-minute demo, but it was heavily inspired by Zelda to the point of feeling familiar, and I enjoyed my time with it. The ability to play this style of game comfortably on a PC rather than on a handheld device was also part of the appeal, so fans of classic Zelda titles should certainly give it a check. Among all of the countless idler games available, Eldor'Idle stands out as one of the best. Similar to the other idler games, you click on items, accumulate your money, and then click again. However, what set it apart from all the other games was its presentation. The visuals invoked a strong nostalgic feeling reminiscent to me of Harvest Moon, particularly Friends of Mineral Town, especially with the gnomes managing the automation. So perhaps it's because of this nostalgic bias that I loved it so much, I don't know. It just feels oddly melancholic at times. Much of the demo involved smashing pots belonging to an elderly couple before progressing to the other houses. Perhaps it was because of the music, or maybe it was because of my perception, but several friends shared the same sentiment. It made us feel rather sad. It might work better if this couple were portrayed as less helpless and more rude to us, which would then make the pot smashing feel less heartless, but that is a matter of personal preference. So you smash pots, collect gold, unlock new systems, and gradually expand into the mines and automation with gnomes. While it follows the typical formula of the idle games, it excels in creating a more interactive and observational engagement as you watch them work so they don't steal your stuff, all while you sit there and wait eagerly for your next upgrade. Endless Tactics is similar to Advance Wars, but adds extra layers of complexity. The game revolves around a progressionary challenge that intensifies over time. You will control units on a turn-based grid, eliminate the enemy spawns, collect oil and currency, and then purchase your vehicles, units, and mechs to fend off waves of enemies or retreat before your base is overrun. Although the pacing felt a bit too slow for me, I can say that I enjoyed the variety of units and the mild randomness in what you can deploy every few turns. The game rewards players who can effectively organize and maintain their army throughout the escalating challenges, whether by preserving your units or strategically sacrificing them to reduce enemy numbers. Overall, I found it to be a worthwhile time sink if you are somebody who enjoys a nice strategy investment. The Eternal Life of Goldman showcases the incredible results that can come when artists are adequately compensated for their work, but it also showcases how too much focus on one thing can be a bad thing. The visual elements here are so striking and meticulously crafted with excruciating detail that this focus on visuals comes with its own drawbacks. When too much emphasis is placed on one aspect like this, other vital areas can end up neglected. This means while the animation here is exceptional, filled with small details and vibrant personalities in every single grain of detail, the gameplay unfortunately feels lacking. The cane mechanic is rarely utilized even though it is presented so well in the tutorial, not to mention how bad the platforming is as it feels more casual than challenging, and the bosses in elite fights are also lacking in intensity. It left me with the impression that the concept may have originally been intended as an animated series before being adapted into a video game. The best feedback that I can give to the developers would be to invest more into the gameplay and combat mechanics, because currently, at least with the demo's preview, it seems like the project focuses entirely on achieving visual excellence with minimal support from the gameplay. With some improvements, this game could reach its full potential, be that through the storytelling or any of the mechanics.
Is this the end? Is this the beginning?
So, Ever Siege is a title that I've genuinely struggled with for a while. I've played the demo 3 separate times now, totaling over 5 hours, and I still feel conflicted. There is something that is intriguing about the game. The blend of old-school hero-based RTS design with MOBA elements and tower defense-style resource management occasionally works really well. However, I consistently find it very difficult to recommend because of the flaws and balance problems. The biggest issue I would have to say is the progression system. It keeps changing, and not for the better. I wanted to play as Thalox, the assassin, like I did before in previous iterations, but unlocking any other hero besides the starting character now takes an unreasonable amount of time, and it also switched itself around, and it seems like the percentage requirement keeps changing. In the game, you are going to be roaming around the arena at day and capturing camps and objectives, then surviving enemy waves at night, and you'll do that by either fighting them manually, creating units, or defending with your towers. You'll either play until you are overrun, or defeat the bosses to advance to the new stages while unlocking stronger effects and powers. Conceptually, it is very solid. But here's the thing, if you have half of a brain cell to see the cracks that are showing, which causes everything to crumble in on itself, then it's very hard to recommend. Every single time I played this game, there was crashes and bugs related to the Unreal Engine that were impossible to ignore, and this is a game that does not save your data, so if you fail mid-run, you have to start over from the very beginning. So these hard locks and failed runs, through no fault of the player, were extremely annoying to deal with, along with many other general instabilities. Additionally, there is a dominant meta strategy. Recruiting the Sentinel from the Elder Tree trivializes the entire game from day one, because his mission is extraordinarily stupid, effectively removing the threat of the nighttime hordes up until you kill the 2 bosses, as he himself can keep the line pushed forward until it reaches the boss. But guess what? I ultimately decided to include it anyways because I genuinely want to like it and keep coming back to it. That desire speaks to the potential of a multiplayer RTS that can be played alone or with your friends. However, with the release quickly approaching, it is very hard to believe that the game will ever receive the necessary changes to truly function as intended, which is such a shame.
This is Darwin. And these are also Darwin. And this is Everything is Crab. Survive in a fully living ecosystem and challenge apex predators. Don't get Darwin in all your glorious weirdness.
Everything is Crab takes action roguelikes and adds a fresh twist by incorporating evolution systems similar to those found in Spore. Instead of merely defeating the hordes of enemies for essence, you will feast on their very cores. To succeed, you will need to be quick and assert your dominance over your meals. And if that doesn't appeal to you, there's also the vegan option, which you can only consume fruits and vegetables, although this choice does lock you out of the more superior upgrades and variants, so it's best not to be picky with your food. Each and every run here is better than the last, featuring over 100 evolutions and specializations that can combine in endless ways. In my first run, I transformed into a beefed up Wobbuffet. Other runs allowed me to be a snake, a deer, a bird, or even some cursed hybrid of all four. This was really just the beginning. Every single run will unlock more features in a never-ending cycle of challenge. There were some balancing issues to note, as bosses could take too long to defeat and might escape if you didn't commit to a specialization or invest a lot in damage, so that aspect still likely needs tuning. And of course, it does fall into the category of when you unlock more items, that makes the pool saturated, and when the pool is saturated, it's going to be a lot harder for you to actually get a good build next time. So long as you can stack the physical, range, or elemental damage effectively, you should be able to avoid these problems. Your very creature will always end up looking completely different than your last run, which is half the fun. I'm very interested to see where this leads in future development, as it's already quite silly and great as it currently is. Evocation is a deck-building game centered around demons and cults. While the visuals can be somewhat hard on the eyes, it's quite solid once you dive in. Using your cultic rituals and symbols to engage in battles, you'll face sentinels and bosses, tackle various events, and push through enemy lines until you reach the main boss of each section. Along the way, you will unlock better cards, equipment, and modifiers, and then you can tailor these elements to work together with your current deck. This is where the fun truly begins as you release your inner demons. You can create incredible combos, achieve significant damage spikes by building your shields and using various modifiers and effects. The objective here is quite simple: kill everyone and survive, then bind their demons to your soul through the contracts. These contracts will further enhance your current deck and abilities as you summon more demons each and every stage, while the enemies you've encountered become increasingly more volatile. I played for about 50 minutes, and by the end I found myself eager to continue. The sessions did feel too short. My deck was quite powerful, and I felt confident with the mechanics. I was also scaling damage and stacking defenses, and everything just clicked together perfectly and was not confusing in the slightest, so no need to be wary of sharp learning curves here. My only real critique would be the visuals. These dark gray and white color palettes don't resonate with me. It wasn't easy on the eyes, and I'm not entirely sure how it could improve itself, but perhaps a bit more contrast or color variety would help it out. I understand that the game is aiming for a darker aesthetic, maybe adding some blood, grime, or even some ritualistic stylization could make it feel less grayscale. Overall, Evocation is one of those games that hooks you quickly and leaves you wanting more. Volunteer immediately reminded me of Dust and Elysian Tale, a handcrafted passion project developed over many years by a solo developer. What stood out the most here, however, was the crisp and clean animation quality. While movement in the combat can occasionally feel clunky, especially during running and slashing animations, it's understandable given the game's current state and the ambitious scope, so there is still some polish that is needed. What truly captivated my interest was the game's grasp on what a Metroidvania adventure should be about. It features a deep world filled with memorable characters, a strong sense of growth, and the ability to team up with multiple allies to combine powers and face any enemy encountered. The system also invokes memories to me of Suikoden 1 and 2, particularly with the game's hideout mechanics and the amount of allies that you can recruit. Overall, Fallen Tears feels designed for players who seek a challenging action-adventure experience in a vast open world, packed with numerous bosses and various exploration opportunities. While this still is to be fully determined, I can confidently say that it topped our list for this round of Steam Next Fest, and I believe that it's definitely worth checking out. Far Far West excels in so many great areas. It features co-op gameplay, open-world exploration, extraction-style progression, fast movement, solid gunplay, events, mining, boss fights, class-based leveling, and diverse spells. It's hard to ask for more from a PvE-focused experience. Visually, it invokes strong Sea of Thieves vibes through its art style, combined with the intense boss encounters while offering fast-paced traversal and gameplay overall. Most importantly, the game runs very smoothly. There were no frame drops or technical issues, and the seamless transition from mission to mission feels fantastic as you can jump back in immediately after finishing a run, which keeps the pacing tight and respects your time rather than wasting your time with cutscenes. It feels like Evil Raptor has carefully considered all of these aspects. However, the social structure raises a few concerns, as there does seem to be plenty of opportunities for griefers or trolls, especially since every player needs to be in a group to start missions, initiate the events, or progress through the entire game. Solo PvE roaming is not recommended, as it is better to stick together and play as a team. So hopefully, some features will be added to help mitigate these problems, because playing the game by yourself just isn't all that fun in comparison. Do you know what I miss the most? The feel of classic MMORPGs. They have been slowly but steadily over many years turning into a dying breed. Almost every single new release, whether it's a AAA or an indie game, struggles to survive for more than a year, sometimes barely even a month. The last one I genuinely played was MapleStory 2, and before that, Terra Rising, until Sony took that over. These days, the only MMOs that remain strong are the ones that pioneer the genre. World of Warcraft, RuneScape, MapleStory, FlyFF, Guild Wars 2, Mabinogi. There are so many that are going strong, but also many that haven't aged well, be that through the controls or just developer negligence and player retention. Forever seems to have the right idea, but as usual, most likely will not reach the level that it needs to. And we're not talking about grinding for levels, we're talking about the game as a whole. It had a decent community of players, an open world where you can slay enemies, level up together, collect random gear drops, and even level your individual weapons alongside your character, each with its own abilities. The combat here felt fluid and responsive, similar to Terra Rising, where you can dodge enemies instead of just standing there and taking hits, which gave it a lot of potential. However, the lack of an in-depth stat distribution system was disappointing, or even a multi-classing system. It would have been nice to allocate skills at each level instead of having it auto-assigned. The demo had issues with server stability and optimization, making it very laggy at times. I wanted to play more, but my expectations are going to be heavily tempered. Despite its promise, I fear it may not last beyond the first few months after release. It's definitely nailed things that I look for within an MMO, but I highly doubt people are going to hook onto it. Before you say it, yes, farming with lasers is as simple as a game can get. It features a very single laser cannon placed in the center of a minimalistic arena. You start with nothing and you gradually build up your resources with each passing day. More flies will spawn, more crops will appear, and you will incinerate everything into cinders and ashes. That is the primary objective as a player, and honestly your only objective, making it very easy to jump right into it. Honestly, the simplicity is quite appealing for anybody who just enjoys a strong sound design and a destructive gameplay loop that gets right to the fun. This game is definitely worth at least trying. It is immediately engaging, clean in its execution, and it knows exactly what it wants to be without overcomplicating things or even trying to waste your time. The fact that I was eager to keep playing after roughly 15 minutes speaks volumes, since I was visibly disappointed when it ended prematurely. I cannot see it doing much else more than this, but honestly who cares? Especially if you found yourself having a lot of fun, even if it was only for the first few hours. Fish is a really wild, untamed, and satirical arcade shoot-'em-up. It's best described as a surreal fever dream where you control a fish armed with guns and weapons, blasting through quirky foes like ballerina pumpkins, cyclopean sunflowers, and smiling Venus flytraps. Though the demo only lasted about 15 minutes like many others here, I found it very hard to put down. The gameplay became increasingly fantastic as I continued to progress, feeling polished and more confident with each and every room, which made it even more enjoyable to play. The game swims more in the realm of novelty and humor than serious opposition, but sometimes that's exactly what makes it work. I had a whale of a time, and I'm curious to see how far the developers will take it with future content, or rather, how crazy they can get with their ideas.
Let's go!
Parkour has never been my favorite genre, except for games like Neon White, which is very hard to ignore. Forward Vector is a platforming parkour game with a fantastic soundtrack, if you can at least survive long enough to enjoy it. In this game, you will run through a lengthy stage that increases in speed and difficulty, all in a single attempt. You must jump, dodge, strafe, and go through each zone as the music builds in tempo and also intensity. However, when you fail, you do have to start over from the beginning, which does become frustrating. That being said, it's a mixed bag, because the demo only included the first song. One major issue is the stage's build-up. The first 15 seconds consisted of a slow ambient intro that teaches you the basics without a tutorial, before the beat drops, which disrupts the flow as you learn the mechanics. I think that if the developers cut this section out and began the game at the green zone, offered a generic tutorial in a different song to get to the point, I feel like it would create a far more engaging environment for players eager to jump in and enjoy the action along with the music. As it stands, the introduction only made me want to listen to the soundtrack without actually playing the game. Speaking of tutorials, if you know me, I verbally dislike them. They have become increasingly annoying over the years. Press A to jump, move around with the analog stick, press X to attack, press B to dodge, you know the drill. Many demos follow this pattern. I have not come across a tutorial that is both entertaining and informative, making these forced introductions a very negative memory that sticks with me far more than the gameplay tends to. Future Night does exactly that, but opposite. It feels like one of those bizarre Japanese infomercials that makes no sense, but instantly captivates you with whatever they're promoting. With the wild live-action segments, catchy music, and absurd humor, it grabs your attention right from the start. The game is extraordinarily silly but surprisingly fun as a platforming shooter. I did find a way to break the game, unfortunately, very quickly, which does indicate that it does need more quality assurance testing. You can hardlock yourself as you're leaving your cyborg body, which should not be possible due to clipping through terrain. I did enjoy the mix of bizarre and catchy music because it's a real headbanger. The combination of boss fights, puzzles, and fast-paced action felt excellent. Although the design is minimalistic, it showcases a lot of its inner charm. You know, I've spent an unhealthy amount of time playing through Dead Zone Rogue, so it's very hard for me not to compare it to Galactic Vault. It's a fast-paced shooter where you navigate through arenas collecting weapons and skill upgrades that enhance your abilities, such as faster reloads, larger magazines, or homing projectiles. Each playthrough offers something new. While I know I've played better games, what was showcased here is still worth exploring. My main issue is that my prior experience, again with Dead Zone Rogue, made everything in Galactic Vault, including the bosses, feel almost trivial. This could be due to the lower difficulty curve, and also not having to worry about being one-shot by everything like in Nightmare mode. Nonetheless, I still enjoyed this single-player FPS with solid mechanics and also a fun combat loop. It's likely to be more on the budget side of things as well. Roguelikes always tend to blur together, making it very rare to find one that feels genuinely fresh or really attempts to push strategy and deck building into new directions. Gambonanza stands out by taking the fundamentals of chess and transforms them into a roguelike system. It includes the twists such as using multiple turns, the ability to skip turns, elements of randomness, piece limitation, and a constant risk of losing your entire board, which in this case is your deck. Once all of your pieces are gone, it's game over. This pressure adds tension to each fight as you strategize your board to counter your enemies. I did have some concerns regarding the AI's difficulty, because if you've ever played chess against challenging AI, you will notice a severe lack of challenge here. Because it seemed like the primary focus of the AI here was capturing pieces, and it rarely tries to avoid being captured itself, which makes encounters feel underwhelming. I do hope the developer increases the difficulty so that it becomes a genuine tactical challenge as the AI works to try to take out your more powerful tools. I can't say there was anything particularly special about a game about sucking up ghosts with a vacuum, because it's yet again another incremental game. Many of these games feel simultaneously underwhelming and overwhelming at the same time, because let's face it, they are all the same with a different skin. However, this game did try to hold my attention longer than most. It felt more relaxed, mostly engaging, and way easy to pick up for quick, satisfying sessions. The sound design was solid, the replay value was decent, and it also avoided the immediate boredom that caused many of these games to lose my interest right away. Nevertheless, it is still a very highly saturated subgenre that is likely to lose traction over time because very few in this scene are trying something new. It's likely not to hold your attention for long, but it was still fun to play. I don't usually care for the classic side-scrolling platformers, but this one struck a nostalgic chord with me. Go Mister Chickums sound effects alone trigger that old-school platformer vibe. Here you will jump, bounce, toss eggs into nests, and also collect food from the defeated enemies, and that's it. The gameplay is simple, clean, and familiar, kind of like hanging out with Yoshi and Mario again. While the stages are largely similar and the gameplay feels repetitive, the atmosphere does make it enjoyable. It feels cozy, playful, and it's easy to immerse yourself in when you're looking for something low stress that still feels responsive and fun to control. If there were more stages, variety, and additional modes, I could see myself fully committing to this game. But as it stands right now, it's perfect for when you want to relax and enjoy something that feels both classic and also modern for a few moments. If you're in search of a comforting platformer with strong audio and chill vibes, this game is nostalgic and quietly satisfying. In GunBoat God, you play as a humanoid creature who falls from the atmosphere onto a tar-covered planet inhabited by sentient beings. Landing directly in the boat of an expressive and quirky local reptilian inventor who is overjoyed by your arrival, if not a bit upset that you almost destroyed his very creation, as he needs to test drive his latest invention, the gunboat. With his engineering expertise and your ability to control it, you embark on a journey to become the GunBoat God. This means defeating enemies, navigating various terrains, tackling challenging boss fights, surviving enemy waves, and completing mission-based stages to a chaotic beat of fast-paced gameplay. The feels here are reminiscent of classic games that you'd find buried deep on Newgrounds or in any of the old Java-based Flash games that you might have stumbled on during a stormy night, played for a few sessions, and then forgot about as you got older. I can say that I thoroughly enjoyed this, because I found myself smiling and laughing along with a companion the entire time. Who else or what else might we meet and discover throughout our journey? That is still to be determined. Even though these minimalistic visuals are simple, so much joy has been poured into each and every expression. Helix Descent and Ascent was very neat, offering a lot of appealing features. It is a visually minimalistic yet remarkably clever monochromatic platforming puzzle game built around the constant interplay between ascent and descent across altered worlds. Players will alternate between these states, manipulating platforms, thinking outside of the box, and rotating multiple layers of abilities that seamlessly blend together. This creates the puzzles that feel more interactive than they initially seem, without becoming exhausting or overwhelming. What stands out the most here is the game's confidence in showcasing its puzzles, because it does not attempt to confuse its players or over-explain itself, as many of these puzzles are to be solved by your own intuition alone, specifically without any hand-holding. It invites you to observe what is already in front of you, watch how the world reacts to its own rules, and then mirror that logic through your own actions later on as you gradually piece together solutions in a very satisfying way. There are no patronizing tutorials, drawn-out dialogue boxes, or any forced exposition. Everything here is a blank canvas. The story is conveyed entirely through the motion and mimicry, particularly through the presence of your doppelganger and the fluid reactive animations of the environment. It provides a lot of quiet, thoughtful experience that trusts players to learn through observation, making every solution feel earned through their own efforts rather than bland instructions.
Every bug has its place. Find their synergies, evolve them, and overcome our foes. Call on the Vespada, Cabal, and the Sweet Symphony. Strengthen our forces any way you can. Command our armies. Push the Blight back.
Personally, I'm a big fan of auto battlers because they're easy to jump into, like sitting on the sidelines while you're resting your eyes, yet you can still use your tactical knowledge to plan out your army specializations. So it's not like it's entirely playing by itself. Hive Blight is one of these titles. You progress through multiple encounters, events, and shops, customizing your army not through a deck of cards, but by equipping them with weapons and gear that changes their impact on the battlefield. Some of these units gain shields, others gain thorns, and some stack power each time that they strike, or each time that they use an ability. You can also enhance their speed, aggression, healing abilities, or defensive capabilities. I really enjoyed this game because of how powerful that you can become, as my frontline tank was melting through enemies effortlessly with massive thorn stacks. The game includes a little analytics screen that shows you what you're doing right and where you can improve, which is always a nice feature to see. My only critique here is that I wanted more. I desired more additional stages, longer stages, tougher encounters, and more ways to evolve your bugs into legendary statuses. Think about it like this: multiple evolutions and fully upgradable gear slots. I'm not entirely sure how that would work, but the potential is definitely there for an already perfect bite-sized journey that unfortunately ended far too soon. Have you played Diablo 2? If not, Hordes of Distraction might inspire you to give it a try. It's yet again another clicking title where you spend most of your time clicking the game, gathering gear, crafting legendary variants, and stacking your blessings and multipliers to enhance your future runs. The gameplay itself is average, much like many of the titles in this subgenre. However, the real highlight here is its presentation, which genuinely made me want to revisit Diablo 2. This timing is quite amusing, given that there's been a remaster, a recent expansion, and new class updates to Diablo 2 that makes it easier than ever for both veterans and new players to dive back into the classic. This is mainly why the game made it onto the showcasing list. It effectively reminds you of the impact a well-crafted classic can have on you, especially in an era when many companies prioritize business moves over player experience, or, quite honestly, even player retention. While the gameplay may not be exceptional, I still had a lot of fun playing through it, and I also look forward to having even more fun when I do jump back into Diablo 2 to relive some lost joys, and that's all thanks to this game.
Give me your memories and I will give you your desire. In time.
Hordes of Fate firmly belongs in the action roguelike category, which is already quite extensive. The game excels in its presentation with the top-down 3D visuals which are sharp, the narrator that adds an engaging touch, and the combination of elites, bosses, and mechanics that helps keep the gameplay varied and interesting each and every run. Players will build a deck through both successes and failures, which can be frustrating at times, but you're going to navigate through these portals and chain skills together as enemies become increasingly more challenging. While the game's mechanics may feel familiar, the execution is much more polished than most others in the genre. Some builds are noticeably weaker than others, but it doesn't feel like a grind when you need specific meta unlocks to progress, nor do these unlocks unnecessarily complicate the game. Instead, the focus is on selecting high impact damage and splash skills and then strategizing around them rather than relying on these low impact trail skills. So there is some issue with balance. Overall, the game is decent. If you're already tired of action roguelikes, then this one is unlikely to convert you. However, if you still enjoy the gameplay loop, this is certainly one of the more polished and well-presented entries showcased during this event.
Collect materials during action stages, then use them in the strategy stage to rebuild your kingdom, strengthening your characters. Restore your kingdom with action and strategy. Kingdom's Return. Coming April 23rd, 2026.
You may find mixed or negative impressions about Kingdom's Return, but I believe those opinions are unfairly harsh. This game is genuinely a fun hack-and-slash stage-based RPG, reminiscent of titles you may have played on the Nintendo DS around 2006. It does not aim to be a deep strategic RPG, instead it focuses on pressing buttons, casting spells, farming materials, and helping to build up a city. While it may not be a groundbreaking or spectacular title, it delivers exactly what it promises in terms of visuals. The graphics are impressive, the story is decent, and although the gameplay can become repetitive, I didn't really mind that at all. It feels intentionally mindless, fitting the nostalgic era that it's trying to channel. You build up your base, you create combinations for better passive effects and skills, all while working towards saving the Fey Kingdom from a spreading blight that is threatening the world. The combat here is, yes, basic. Jump into battles, hit enemies with a staff, sword, or daggers, and then enjoy some uncomplicated fun. There's nothing overly complex here. The game is aware of this, and it sticks to its own identity. Perhaps future updates will introduce more content and features to experiment with, but I wouldn't expect any significant changes to its style. If you enjoy classic games reminiscent of the Nintendo DS era, this is a solid choice in my opinion. Kloa features a beautiful and serene world that feels lovingly handcrafted, drawing heavily from Japanese folklore. The forest begins in disarray after a spiritual god is killed by an encroaching evil that it attempted to stop. As a child of that forest, raised by that god, you embark on a quest to restore balance in the realm before chaos ensues. With the help of various wildlife creatures, you set out on this challenging journey. You can unlock new weapons, parry enemies, and take them down with range attacks as you fight against the spreading corruption. I can see what the game is trying to achieve, and it played smoothly enough that nothing hindered the player's experience. Overall, it presents a solid take on the adventure RPG without being overly complicated. Could Lands of Fury be considered an incremental game? I'm still unsure of that. It is an early access action roguelike where you navigate an ever-changing world, hunt enemies, gather resources, and craft weapons, armors, and elemental gear as you level and tackle underground burrows. Eventually, when you die, you return to the start with unlocked modifiers and rescued residents, but you begin again at level 1, with only slight incremental boosts to your base character. Repeating this loop gradually will make you stronger, yet you still feel undergeared and underpowered, even late into a run. The game has the potential to be something great. Even if the gameplay can feel repetitive, I'm still curious about what the developer has planned with the future, as I inexplicably find myself wanting to return to grind for the gear despite the significant time investment and understanding that I will continue to fail until I eventually win. Maybe it's because I enjoyed games like Darza's Dominion. Regardless, I can see the potential. I see a hook, and it's got me, but it's still not ready to reel me in. Among the many incremental games presented at this event, The Last Cat in the Universe stood out as the most unique. The concept here is very good. You take on the role of a space station responsible for keeping the last living soul in the entire universe alive, an adorable little cat who's been left alone, alive after humanity has been wiped out after a catastrophic event. You have complete control over reformatting the station, managing resources, and ensuring this cat enjoys the best life it possibly can. Unfortunately, the demo did not showcase really any of the gameplay. You blast what I assume are biostations with lasers to gather some materials and food, gradually increasing your power to meet the cat's needs. Beyond this mechanic, the demo left me wanting so much more. Rather than feeling satisfied, however, the game's charming design and the concept left me with a strong desire to see the full release, but also quite annoyed as there was not a whole lot here to play around with. In Leilu, you play as a clockwork toy that gains sentience after acquiring a screw, which allows you to move in a single direction. As you make more progress, you unlock additional screws that grant you more movement options, enabling you to move freely, dash, attack, swim, reflect, and more. The game here features a minimalistic action-adventure style with a striking monochromatic aesthetic that is surprisingly well animated despite its simplicity. Leilu is not aiming to be a difficult Metroidvania. The bosses are engaging, although the combat mechanics can be a bit repetitive, with abilities like the area of effect ground slams appearing frequently. Some enemies follow classic wait your turn patterns reminiscent to that of Zelda games, where you must react after they attack. While this can feel somewhat dated, it still works within this genre of gameplay. To me, it feels like the casual approach to the genre is well-rounded. There is plenty to explore, collect, and unlock as you work towards escaping this cursed facility in which you and your fellow toys are currently trapped in. In the beginning, Lul was a bit confusing due to its complex turn-based combat system. However, as I played more, it began to grow on me. Managing your units to avoid delayed enemy specials, balancing your SP, defense, and offense, and chaining combos like knockbacks into traps and flame walls made battles feel tactical and satisfying. The inspiration from classic games such as Breath of Fire and a few others are very apparent. It felt like a classic JRPG from the PlayStation era, the kind of game that those old enough to remember would have grown up with. The boss fights here presented a mechanical challenge. The story was solid and engaging, and the characters are well developed. I wouldn't change much about the game as it's clear that the developers know exactly what they want to create, and it obviously shows. While it wasn't as phenomenal as Alabaster Dawn, it was still right up there. So if you're a fan of classic JRPGs, this game is definitely worth your attention. And I would like to say good job overall with creating this game. Although the demo for Lone Chef showcased limited hands-on gameplay, it did highlight the impressive visual smoothness of his animations and of course its cutscenes. This level of polish is worthy of praise. Personally, I don't usually gravitate towards cooking games, not because they are inherently bad, as many of them do succeed, but because most of them fail to provide more than a casual or relaxing gameplay. Story and long-term engagement often seem like afterthoughts for those seeking a deeper experience. Lone Chef fell into this same pattern, at least based on what was shown here. The game revolves around gathering your materials to cook meals to progress to your quests, all while striving to stop a demon lord who resides atop a nearby mountain. As you embark on this journey, you will have to fight, collect resources, and of course work towards a peaceful life in the countryside. However, this tranquility is constantly disrupted by demons who clearly do not want you there. What ultimately makes Lone Chef stand out are the animations and pixelated scenes, which consistently carry much of the gameplay's presentation, even if the cooking element itself does not. What else would you need to know? Lootbound features fantastic visuals reminiscent of Slay the Spire, supported by strong design elements. You control up to 3 party members and can organize their gear individually using a backpack system to create powerful effects, synergies, and defensive setups. During these turn-based battles, you will gather resources to refine your builds between runs. If you enjoy eye-catching games that are both challenging and partially hands-on, filled with diverse strategies and stat-based progression, Lootbound is definitely worth checking out as a stand-in for Slay the Spire before that game comes out with its sequel. It already shows great promise, and I hope that the full release expands on these skills, consumables, and especially the backpack system. Introducing a larger pack or smaller packs could be an interesting way to adjust the difficulty depending on the party's composition and player preference. This game truly feels like a perfect playground for experimentation.
I'm guessing there was something pretty bad in there. There's something in the water. An old wooden boy with a face.
Similar to a few other titles on this list, the Mermaid Mask did not reveal much of its core concepts in this demo, which only lasted about 14 minutes. This mystery game encourages players to listen closely, pay attention, click on key images, and complete sentences that the protagonists are about to say in order to progress the story. The main objective revolves around solving the murder of Magnus Mortuga, the captain of a suspicious submarine, by examining objects and searching for clues while following leads to advance to the next location. I found that it was relaxing and it felt more like a voice-driven interactive mystery story with light point-and-click elements rather than an actual challenging detective game. This approach may appeal to players who prefer not to think too hard about it, but also those seeking deductive systems or demanding puzzles might also find it a bit too easy. The design was good and the voice acting was decent. I could have seen myself playing more of the demo if it didn't cut off so abruptly, as I was starting to enjoy it. While playing through Mole, two games immediately came to mind: Iron Lung meets Mouthwash, both known for their strong thematic elements. Mole incorporates the same dark and well-written psychological horror that's seen in Mouthwash, but it shifts the focus towards survival under pressure as you are trying to find your bearings, exactly what you would see in a game like Iron Lung. The only difference is that in Mole, you are digging deep underground, guided by a voice that you cannot trust, alongside the remains of a crew that seemingly has gone insane and turned on each other. Your objective is straightforward: see the mission through to the end, while also keeping yourself alive. As you descend downwards, you will piece together scattered clues, emails, and passwords while operating the mole directly, a massive mechanized drill that must be carefully maneuvered and manipulated. Progress is very slow, but it's very deliberate, and each decision brings you closer to the whispers below. As you dive deeper, the voices will slowly grow louder and more convincing, beckoning you to dig further. The real horror lies not in what you find underground, but in how the game steadily erodes your sanity as you continue to delve into the depths while searching for your friends and also the answers. I don't need to say anything here. If you love Tove Jansson, you will adore everything created by Hyper Games. Their stories, written in a love letter style, beautifully capture the heartwarming tales of Snufkin and Moomintroll, emphasizing themes of caring for one another and for nature and its creatures. Having recently played through Melody of Moomin Valley, I fell in love with this longtime favorite for many European children from the early 1970s and 1980s. Now it's Moomintroll's turn to save the valley during the depths of winter. This game brings the story to life with its beautiful and heartfelt storytelling, making it well worth the investment. Trust me, you will not find any better representation of Tove and her legacy anywhere else but here. Speed is what makes racing games exciting. The thrill of navigating tight corners, experiencing close calls, and achieving full-speed runs is what keeps players engaged. However, when a game slows down this energy, it often misses the elements that make the genre so special, no matter how good it might seem to be. MotoRush Reborn falls into this category. It features a solid stage-by-stage progression system with a simple goal: be as fast as possible while avoiding cars, barricades, structures, and other hazards and effects. The main issue lies in the pacing, as the game employs methods that inadvertently slow you down consistently. For instance, sliding under hazards disrupts the flow of gameplay both visually and physically. Although the concept is interesting, it often detracts from the player's vision and control, leading to frustrating moments. That being said, there is still thrilling experiences within the game, particularly with the underground parking sections. It caters to thrill seekers, even if it leans more towards speedrunning and puzzle-like stages rather than a free-roaming experience. I would love to see the developers enhance the game further by focusing more on the speed and reducing the number of sliding obstacles. We previously discussed Muri Wildwoods during a previous playtest, and the impression remains unchanged. It was an absolute charm. The game captures the spirit of Super Mario Sunshine, but instead of Flood and Mario navigating a tropical adventure, players will take on the role of embarking on their first day as a cleaner. The island and its creatures are counting on you to help restore the balance. Guided by your furry friends through TeamSpeak, you will explore a once vibrant environment, revitalizing corrupted lands and protecting nature. This is a very casual platformer that's also wholesome and colorful, designed for players seeking a comforting experience rather than a punishing one that detracts from everything else. In comparison to Super Mario Sunshine, this game is an absolute gem to control. The cleaning mechanics are familiar and very satisfying, and the game leans heavily into these cute moments, knowing its audience well. It doesn't attempt to surprise players with brutal difficulty spikes or sudden genre shifts, as it's focused entirely on cleaning up the world. I'm going to be honest, the original playtest left a stronger impression on me. It felt a lot longer, broader, showcasing more of what the full game has to offer, and this demo felt lighter. It didn't really quite capture the same spark as a previous journey. If you enjoy simulators, light platforming, and the idea of cleansing a corrupted world and protecting nature, then this game is still worth checking out for any and all that get excited about the adorable. It is designed to be cozy and also inviting. So why don't you invite yourself on over? I'd never heard about this series before, but Nocturnal 2 looked phenomenal. The vibrant presentation immediately stood out. In this game, similar to the first one, you will navigate a side-scrolling world filled with darkness and enemies. Your main mission is to light up every single torch that you encounter to make progress. That's the main mechanic, and honestly, I was not a fan of it. Because you need to light up 100% of the world, and each torch only increases your progress by half of a percentage or even a 0.1%. As you can imagine, I did not find that mechanic very enjoyable, although the combat and the platforming were quite good, if not a bit generic. The visuals were impressive and the world looked beautiful, and the atmosphere here was strong. However, I did find that the story cutscenes felt oddly AI generated. Still, this demo left a positive impression on me even if I wasn't quite feeling the whole vibe. I think they just need something more than just lighting torches. It's not exactly a compelling mechanic. The first game in the series is often on sale for just $1, making it very hard to pass up on that price to see what it's all about. It's also incorporating mechanics reminiscent of Prince of Persia, which was a surprising but cool vibe. The visuals here are everything, so let's hope that they can turn the gameplay into something just as good. Unlikely, but here's hoping.
I was finally about to avenge my king, but the odds were against me.
Odds Chronicle is a linear turn-based tactical strategy game where players travel the same routes on each run, choosing between dexterity, strength, and intelligence encounters in an attempt to win battles and to earn better rewards. The game draws inspiration from tabletop gaming, which adds to its appeal. I found myself wanting to keep pushing forward, reaching new locations and challenging each boss in a lead encounter. However, its linearity serves as both a mechanic and a very severe drawback. This is because players are expected to follow one main path, as deviating from it can lead to becoming overwhelmed by enemies that are vastly more powerful. Progress often becomes a cycle of choosing the wrong path, failing, retrying, and then selecting the correct route to advance a little further the next time you start over, until better upgrades become available. This was rather frustrating. While this punishing aspect needs a lot more refinement from the developers for the future releases, I still enjoyed the game overall. The tactical design, the skill systems are all strong enough to keep it engaging, even when the structure itself feels a bit too restrictive and linear at all times. It just needs a little bit more randomization. It's exciting to see operatives revolve again. I played an earlier prototype when the solo developer was seeking external feedback, and at the time, the game was far too difficult, particularly due to the enemy scaling and challenging boss fights, along with some performance issues. However, these concerns have all been addressed with the release of the Steam demo. While the game still presents a challenge, it no longer feels necessary to have a very specific deck simply to survive. What sets operatives apart from most deck builders is how the cards function both for offense and also defense together. You actually use your cards to do damage, but also as to block damage, meaning you must strategically position and protect your most important cards to ensure that they remain in play and don't become cracked. After you finish your turn, if a card is destroyed before your turn plays out, you will suffer blowback damage from the attack, and you can also incur damage when trying to charge broken cards on your next turn. This mechanic makes positioning and defensive planning just as crucial as dealing damage to your opponents, as you must modify and empower your cards through mechanical upgrades. The strategy revolves around balancing defensive tools and protecting your core cards while chaining high-cost cards with zero-cost cards to spike your power into the double or even triple digits. You will also need to maintain enough cards on the field or gain more energy and draw count to avoid becoming vulnerable. The game finally seems to have a clear vision of what it's aiming to be, offering a lot more build diversity. Although it can be a bit challenging to grasp initially, once it clicks, it all feels very rewarding.
The spotter's quick and efficient mobilization of subjects at the research and development facility has been proven time and time again to be effective. Going to the future. Wait, 07? Subject 07?
OS 95 clearly draws inspiration from the Stanley Parable. It is evidently a one-person project. It's a game that's created by one person, voiced by one person, featuring multiple endings by the same one person. Unexpected twists and humor woven through make it a lot of fun to play through. Games like this are very challenging to execute well. It requires extensive planning and structure to ensure that these branching paths feel cohesive enough without becoming confusing. There wasn't much to experience in this initial display aside from exploring, interacting, and encountering a few quick endings, making it difficult to assess the entire scope of the game. Nevertheless, despite some repetition, the use of the same voice actor for all of the characters, and a similar general design throughout the entire experience, there was a distinctive charm that I couldn't help but enjoy. In the world of packing packs, you play as an unemployed individual with exceptionally manual dexterity. The story here is that you're down on your luck and you need a job. That is when your new employer appears out of nowhere, asking you to become a professional packing buddy for the Packing Pack Pals. Your new job consists of solving puzzles by rearranging backpacks filled with hot, wet, sandy, electric, and fragile items, all while keeping incompatible objects separate while also meeting client demands. Honestly, it was a fun logic puzzle, but it's also infused with humor, personality, and a surprisingly satisfying flow. Your new boss will appear in different backgrounds, chill and relax, mumbling incoherently to himself while occasionally offering hints if you need them, which is of course optional as you allow yourself to engage your brain to solve problems all on your own. The vibe of the game strikes a balance between Animal Crossing and tough puzzles. Completing a stage feels rewarding, and each new puzzle motivates you to keep going further. The pacing is swift and the rules are clear, as the game consistently challenges you to think in unconventional spatial and elemental ways. Disappointment struck for me when the demo suddenly ended, which is a good sign for what is to come. If you're drawn into cute visuals and engaging puzzles, you don't want to miss out on this title. To me, it always feels like the days of classic point-and-click adventures are behind us, where developers could be clever and inventive or simply whimsical. While there are still developers attempting to recapture the magic of these journeys crafted in the early 90s, few succeed without relying on the same modern gimmicks. Though I have to say that Panthalaza piqued my interest. The game excelled in retro style through its writing, interactive elements, and also puzzle design, immersing players in the mystery of an underwater alien world filled with diverse species and also a few mechanics. As you explore this world, you are gradually piecing together your lost memories, uncovering how you ended up in this forsaken place while you become trapped within an artificial body. The sense of discovery here was strong, even though it was mostly about finding new species through the automated feed, but this made it feel like a genuine throwback rather than another mere imitation. There was a lot to dig into when it came to piecing together the clues within the dialogue itself, which is perfect for those who enjoy a little sleuthing. Fast-paced FPS action meets a dark underlying story featuring the powers of what appeared to be a pencil that was created in a lab of, let's just say, unhinged scientists. There was not a lot of clear exposition here to work with, but between that and gunning down enemies with speed and tact while raising your modifiers to rank S and above, I don't really think many people would care that much about that. Something very bad has happened, and now you hold the pencil's power in your very hands, in a facility that you woke up in, targeted by everything that still has the capacity to move and function. Run, gun, shoot, and survive as fast as you can to the end of the levels. You'll be relentlessly hunted down by these elite forces of lobotomized creatures and powerful bosses. What is happening? Who are you? That is all a part of the allure. If you like a challenge, speed, and mindless violence, then check out the game for yourself. Past the Fear showcased some of the best build diversity that I encountered during this Steam Next Fest, from its clean UI and genuinely interesting systems along with full co-op support for up to 4 players. With over 100 effects along with relics and tarot-style modifiers, you can create an incredible number of builds. In one session, I managed to replicate a Draven-like playstyle from League of Legends, where I would shoot a Viper bullet, catch it to instantly reload, and then shoot it again for bonus damage. By combining this with multi-shot and a 1-round chamber weapon, I achieved an infinite firing loop while standing still, and scaling damage into the thousands, infinitely. These effects, paired with passives that ramped up the damage and poison endlessly, allowed us to defeat bosses in mere seconds. This truly illustrated how ridiculous and enjoyable the power fantasy becomes. I mean, I was practically writhing in disappointment when the demo suddenly ended so abruptly and also shut down the run. This title definitely is at the top of my list, because there's so much to love. Honestly, at first I wasn't really feeling the Postman Cometh, as the opening hit me with constant loud grating sound effects that genuinely hurt my ears a few times. It really did feel like the game was trying to push me away before I could even settle in, so I wanted to give you a heads up about that. But of course, I am stubborn, so I pushed through this, and slowly, things did start to click. It reminded me a lot about Frog Detective. Simple, silly, and completely unserious. It's the kind of game that just loves to commit to nonsense. The dialogue itself put me in a whoa mentality as everything started to come together. Aside from the game crashing after talking to the catnip-addicted cat, the demo quickly grew on me, because it's pure chaos. You're knocking people upside the head, causing mayhem, as the game leans into that absurdity, the absurdity that you are now their postman. I do think that it could have gone even further. For example, when the postman himself gives you the job after you crash into the town, my first instinct was to throw the ball at him directly, which was hilarious, especially when he started cursing us out. But here's an idea. Let us knock him out. Let us be the reason he falls into the tutorial water at the start of the game. That would have really sent me. My only complaint is that the audio needs some serious tuning. Many of these sound effects were way too loud and genuinely grating on the ears, and that needs some fixing. But tone-wise, this is absolutely my type of chaos. It's pure meme energy, slapstick nonsense, and something that I can fully support and laugh at. Hopefully it gets the changes and the support that it needs, because this was genuinely fun, even if it was difficult to get into initially. I have never really understood why people enjoy shop management and customer simulation games. They just never resonated with me. So when the publisher recommended Puni The Florist, I thought, sure, why not? It looks cute. However, a game centered on making bouquets doesn't really initially sound appealing. Regardless, I went ahead and played it. The game is hilarious, adorable, and oddly satisfying as you take your orders, interact with the residents, create the perfect bouquet, and then receive compliments through genuinely sweet dialogue. And honestly, I enjoyed it more than I ever anticipated. My only concern here would be the longevity of the replay value, because it will become stale quickly, no matter how charming Puny or the dog are. It'll entirely depend on the additional areas, mechanics, and progression systems that the full game introduces. If you have an interest for the genre, it's certainly worth checking out. However, I would not be surprised if many people passed up on it, as I do understand the distaste that many have for this type of game.
You want me? Push me, let it be, push me. You want me? Push me, let it be, push me, let it be, push me.
I can't believe this is possible. With so many coin pusher games available and having played through numerous ones, I never felt truly invested in any of them. They all seemed the same, shallow, soulless, and lacking the immersion that you would find in a casino or an arcade machine. More importantly, they just didn't feel fun to play through physically. However, Recoin changed that. It engages you, it draws you in, and it highlights all the little details that you love about this genre. It perfectly captured the thrill of near misses, the temptation of shaking the cabinet, and the joy of winning big. The pixel art, the colorful displays, the variety of coins, silly little dances, and the incredible combo possibilities gave it a lively feel. Seriously, if you have that brain itch that needs scratching, give it a try, and then tell me yourself you didn't feel the same. Rainbow Legends faced some challenges due to translation errors and issues with Japanese font breaking the dialogue boxes. Despite these drawbacks, I found the game to be intriguing, particularly because of its board-based combat and the focus on territory control, which is relatively a rare combination. It centers around building a deck of cards, chaining their effects, and then gaining control over territories throughout the arena. Any of the excess control over your opponents translates directly into damage, which creates a strong sense of strategy and control during your turns when everything aligns. When the mechanics come together nicely, the gameplay can feel genuinely fun and satisfying. However, the main boss fight emerged as a major problem for me. In contrast to the earlier encounters, the game field's negations and defensive mechanics were very poorly communicated due to, again, the translation errors. This made the boss fight more confusing than challenging, and felt inconsistent with how the game explains how to take them on. Despite many of the clarity issues, Rainbow Legends has a solid foundation for players who enjoy turn-based strategy and deck building mixed together with elemental control. It's worth watching and following so long as the developers can resolve the font and UI problems. Rat Doodle had one significant issue that's very hard to overlook. The claymation-style font is nearly unreadable. While it appears bold and quirky, Deciphering this dialogue is quite the challenge, which is unfortunate for a game that clearly wants players to engage with its world and its story. It embodies pure Mario and Banjo-Kazooie vibes. The jump cycles, the aerial spins, combos, exploration loops, and the puzzle-driven platforming all feel like a heartfelt tribute to classic 3D collectathon games. But of course, in its own style. I love this relaxed and playful atmosphere, featuring charming little dances, hidden zones, and a very strong incentive to break out of bounds to discover what was tucked away in hard-to-reach areas. The sound design here was very catchy to the extent that I found myself humming along. The cutscenes and creature riding mechanics all added a substantial amount of charm. Moreover, it seems to incorporate a Sonic-inspired Chao Garden-style feature, which was a delightful touch. There's clearly a lot of passion put into this. If the developer focuses on improving readability and overall accessibility, it could certainly become something truly special for everybody involved. As it stands, I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I'm eager to see it tightened and refined further.
Take me back to your promised land.
Replace demonstrates that pixel art can still impress you when done well. Not to say that there's anything wrong with pixel art, it's just few games really capture its visual effectiveness. Like Octopath Traveler is probably the most recognizable mainstream example because it looks beautiful, but that feels like artificial beauty. However, there are titles like Backbone, later known as Tales Noir, Lacuna, and other games like The Drifter that don't quite achieve the same level of clarity and detail but still manage to impress you. The art style here is precise, vibrant, and consistently beautiful, while the gameplay itself is more linear as it suffers from the bland combat and simplistic platforming, such as moving left and right to solve basic puzzles as you engage with what combat is available. It's the visuals that are going to truly captivate players. You play as an escaped test subject hunted by the Phoenix Corporation, because you are a highly intelligent AI that is trapped in a human body. This knowledge drives you to return to your lab, aided by the local resistance. The game has this rustic 80s vibe filled with the chaos and cinematic cutscenes, which I do hope will be more prevalent in the full release. The stunning visuals will draw you in, and the narrative adds weight to the linear gameplay, making this demo a worthwhile experience for anybody who appreciates pixel art storytelling. However, the combat flow and the overall gameplay mechanics do need a lot of refinement, otherwise it will let you down quite quickly. It feels like it's going to be a linearity problem. You've played countless platforming games designed to challenge you, through repeated failures gradually pushing you towards success. However, Recede poses a different question. What if you couldn't see the level at all? Recede is a platformer centered around memory recollection and precision. The game briefly will display the arena and then requires you to navigate it from memory, testing how well you can recall the hazards, the layout, and also the timing. Challenges such as completing a stage in 3 or fewer deaths provide structure without transforming the experience into a punishing cycle. What really surprised me most is how enjoyable the game actually is, especially coming from somebody like myself who typically dislikes platformers that rely on frustrating progression and hyper-precise execution. Instead of feeling oppressive, Recede has a gentle, comforting vibe that makes the stages feel fun rather than frustrating. It's a clever twist on a familiar genre, managing to be challenging without causing the player to want to punch their screen, as not everything has to be designed to piss off a player. This was bound to happen. Web Phishing eventually stopped updating their game due to severe doxing and harassment over a simple little title. This led to a strong desire for somebody to pick up the mantle. Rift Phishing delivers everything that you would expect from web phishing, but turned up to 11. The character customization is incredibly impressive, making you want to sit down and take it all in and explore the seaside island at your own pace. The community so far was fantastic. It included all the features that you would hope for, such as 18+ restrictions, various server settings, and hopefully anti-griefing and anti-hack measures, issues that ultimately plague web phishing. As somebody who struggles to meet new people, I found it to be one of the best places to start. Fishing serves as a natural icebreaker, and the extensive customization lets you express yourself the way you want to, whether you're aiming for the weirdest look or trying to look your best. It's simply a welcoming and fun environment for both shy players and those who are more socially aggressive. So grab a fishing rod, sit your butt down, and take in the quiet and relaxing scenes with a twist of dimensional rifts. What happens next is anybody's guess, but let's hope for the best nonetheless, shall we? To me, action roguelikes are always going to blend together. Risen Blade stands out with its own little approach. While the genre feels oversaturated, with many games making minor tweaks or adding a few tiny features to differentiate themselves, Risen Blade tries to separate itself with its simplicity. In this game, you will play as a warrior who has dropped into confined arenas. Your objective is to jump in, slash through enemies, unlock new subclasses, and gain special powers and attacks as you gradually master an expanding set of skills and also the encounters. Although the demo did not delve deeply into the number of available classes and skills, I spent about an hour defeating enemies, retrying runs, and experimenting with different builds. This will lead to the main issue. Restarting after making steady progress can become very repetitive, especially since you realize that this game is a linear structure, that being the same bosses and elite enemies appear in a fixed order along with all of the skills and variation. I feel like it would benefit the developer if they introduced more randomization, as this could help the game stand out in a crowded genre where keeping players engaged through diversity is the most important feature. Runomicon is a true workout for your brain. It's a tower defense game where instead of slowly building up towers, you must remember patterns and quickly recite the correct symbols into each node. Your success depends on how effectively you can manage your rituals to gain mana, summon defenses, upgrade your towers, and heal, all while unleashing powerful magic and managing your resources, quickly and efficiently. This game does not impose a skill gate that punishes poor timing or cheap deaths. Instead, it focuses on memory and strategy. The demo jumps straight from stage 1 to the higher levels, introducing a multitude of new mechanics all at once, which can make the learning curve feel quite steep. You have very little time to adapt, but this tension is what made me want to learn more about the game's functions. It's fast-paced, challenging, and rewarding for anybody who enjoys a mental challenge that is going to test your focus as you recall and plan under pressure. However, it's likely that the full release will offer a more gradual introduction to all of the mechanics, making it a much more accessible game for more players. Is it strange to admit that I don't really recall much about Scott Pilgrim movies or the animated series? I know the character, of course, but my recollection is quite hazy. Regardless, Scott Pilgrim EX is an upcoming side-scrolling beat-em-up that delivers exactly what you would expect. The game offers a modern twist on Streets of Rage, with a distinct Scott Pilgrim aesthetic. The combat feels familiar and features varying levels of challenge, along with the accessibility of perks and equipments. There's of course story dispersed throughout, as well as plenty of areas to explore and backtrack at your own leisure. The more I played, the more intriguing the game became, accumulating into the demo's ending that left me hanging with a cliffhanger including a mob fight and a boss reveal. I was a bit disappointed that the demo did not properly introduce the cast, but there's always the full release to look forward to if I am interested, as it seems like one of those games that truly requires you to be a fan of the theme to fully enjoy it. You will encounter many games in the indie scene, such as action roguelikes that are inspired by Vampire Survivors, gambling systems reminiscent of Balatro, and various familiar game mechanics that are all being copied by so many other titles. Therefore, it's refreshing to see indie developers blend old and new ideas rather than simply rehashing existing templates, even though this title is not the first to attempt such a mix. Snake Romancy reimagines the classic Snake concept by incorporating tower defense elements on top of the Snake itself. Here you control a snake that grows as it eats, navigating maze-like levels while aiming to reach the exit after collecting enough keys. If you don't eat enough, your snake will lose segments, and each segment hosts a tower. Losing a segment temporarily disables the associated tower until you can find more food to regrow. It's a decent concept, but I did encounter some issues with the bread's limitation. It often felt like I was under constant pressure to exit early and search for more bread in the next stage before tackling the later stages, as the hunger increases far too quickly as your snake grows. This accelerated hunger makes exploration feel far too rushed unless you are able to find the passive effects that slow it down. If you manage to acquire significant health upgrades earlier on to mitigate the decay, you're mostly fine. Additionally, being restricted to Tier 2 upgrades and being unable to progress to Tier 3 and Tier 4 felt very limiting for a demo. I hope these aspects are expanded in future updates. Similarly, the archers who can shoot over barricades, unlike the other classes, creates a balance issue that could benefit from some adjustments. Addressing these systems would help eliminate unnecessary restrictions and also improve the balance. Otherwise, you'll be trying to force the same builds each and every time. Despite these concerns, Snakeromancy presents a fantastic concept that is encouraging to see in a genre that's evolving in so many different ways, even if those ways are all combining a lot of the classic arcade-style games with roguelike elements like Minesweeper, Tetris, and so on. It's only a matter of time before developers catch on and start rehashing similar ideas. Space Revolver demonstrates that puzzle games can still be surprising, even if I can't quite pinpoint why I get hooked for hours on end. This game has more minimalistic design than most, but it is rich in layers, blending platforming, arena shifts, blocks, gates, keys, and threats in a way that feels challenging without becoming frustrating as you try to overcome them. Each puzzle here introduces the rules quickly, avoiding lengthy tutorials or drawn-out dialogue, and then encourages you to combine what you've learned already, leading to a smooth challenge, creating a satisfying cycle of problem-solving and player discovery. I still don't get it, how I came to enjoy it. It's calm, it's clever, and it's engaging, proving that sometimes the simplest approach can provide the most enjoyable puzzle experience without feeling like it's an initiation to some kind of a messed up cult of worshippers.
My name is Haley. What's yours? The sentient darkness is stirring. There isn't enough energy on Earth for me to turn into stars and save us. I don't want to die alone, but I'm okay with this being the story of how we lose together. Sucker for Love.
Suckers for Love Crush Landing builds on a series known for its eccentric charm and emotional hook towards your beloved eldritch horror, or Big Got Mommy.
Thank goodness. I thought this nightmare would never end.
My personal favorite entry is Date to Die For, which featured multiple endings and a surprisingly touching romance between the main character and the eldritch beast known as Roxanne. It's well worth the investment for a brilliant visual novel with horror elements if you're down for it. Crush Landing takes a different approach. Here your goal is to keep a meteorite alive long enough for a group of science students to study it. You can feed it objects, tend to its flame, and experiment in precarious ways, or choose not to. The game allows plenty of room for chaos and personal interpretation, but the central challenge is maintaining the connection and keeping the flame alive at all costs, with many interactive elements using various items. These games are oftentimes absurd, hilarious, and even manipulative. I would have loved to dive into the quality assurance side of their work, but time constraints kept me from fully exploring this game and its world before I was ultimately removed from the BLC's team. Even in this demo form, it was a blast, and I'm excited to see what Haley's Comet has in store for us with the full release, because believe you me, it's a game to die for. What happens when you transform Mega Man into a roguelike brawler? Well, you get a surprisingly well thought out concept if you ask me. Super Alloy Crush draws heavily from the essence of Mega Man, blending platform progression with a structured story mode before launching you into a series of challenging bosses and elite encounters. Each run will reward you with currency, stat upgrades, and modifiers that encourage experimentation with combos, aerial precision, and charge shots fired in every direction, all until the run eventually comes to an end. This concept works really well as the game captures the right vibe, alongside the music that fits perfectly, and of course visually, it looks fantastic. The combat is fast, punchy, and also satisfying, especially when everything aligns during a strong run. My only lingering question is how the story ultimately connects to the game's world, as I often found myself more engaged with the sheer joy of defeating enemies in skilled 2D action than the actual narrative framing around it. Super Alloy Crush doesn't just ask whether the Mega Man formula works as a roguelike, it proves it, with stylish and relentlessly fun gameplay. This is pure 2D action done right.
Underground, see? That's my specialty. Oh god, this isn't my specialty! Hold on, Tito! Hold on!
Tito is a delightful 3D platformer where you follow Nori, a highly intelligent bunny engineer who creates Tito, the blob. Tito can absorb elements from the environment, such as flowers, rocks, and water, using them to solve puzzles and to navigate various arenas. It's a game that's trying to capture the family-friendly platformer vibe perfectly. Nori's voice acting is surprisingly soothing with a calm and gentle delivery that aligns well with the game's pace and personality. I found myself wanting to sit back and listen to everything that she had to say, much like enjoying a storybook narrated in her comforting voice. The controls are responsive, movement felt natural, and the combination of puzzles, exploration, and collectathon stages was quite satisfying. Nothing here felt like a chore. What sets Tito apart is the split-screen co-op feature. Playing with a friend or family member transforms the experience into an adorable shared adventure. The characters, the atmosphere, the details, they're all irresistibly cute, making this game enjoyable for people of all ages. It's an experience that is perfect for cozy gaming sessions, whether if it's alone or with somebody you care about. I feel like a lot of people may compare Terranoth Heroes of Descent to Divinity Original Sin 2, but that is a risky comparison. Placing a smaller project like this against a genre giant only raises the expectations and sets the stage for disappointment, when perfection is anticipated but never delivered upon, so don't do that. Terranoth should be evaluated based on its own merits. The demo heavily emphasizes exposition, perhaps a bit too much so. There is a substantial setup for the story before you can even truly engage in the game. However, once you reach that point, the systems reveal promise. What surprised me the most here was the game's structure. Rather than offering a vast open-world RPG experience, it adopts a more stage-driven approach. You will choose a scenario with your choice of heroes. Explore, interact, resolve the objective, and then move on to the next stage. This creates a tighter, almost episodic rhythm, as opposed to a sprawling sandbox environment, and that was kind of off-putting. The combat was solid and familiar, but it does need some clarity. Clear communication regarding how much movement range you have, or turn limitation, which is essential. Knowing precisely how far you can move before your turn ends, or how many hits you can make is crucial in a tactical system. When this information is present, but still unclear because it's not highlighted good enough, it undermines a player's confidence in themselves and of course in the game. The voice acting was a pleasant surprise. Fully voiced dialogue adds a level of depth and polish that I did not expect going in, which certainly helped me keep playing because if it was not voiced, I would no doubt have packed up my things, as I do tend to hate reading, mainly due to how much dialogue is shared here. While my expectations were modest, I can still see the appeal. The foundation is there, with clear communication and combat mechanics and a tighter pacing with the opening. Terranoth could establish its own identity without being overshadowed by many others in this space. It's good enough to earn its place on this list, though it's still possible for it to flop if it doesn't understand what it wants to focus on for itself. The story, the combat, gameplay, only time will tell.
Click that wish list link if you do, then 9 out of 10 omens portend bad tidings, and 9 out of 12 jurors stand ready to render a verdict of guilty. Now 99 out of 100 United States senators support a bill to prevent A.P. Thompson from ever releasing titanium court. They'll make it illegal to own or import or even to torrent.
I was practically handed titanium court on a golden platter, chauffeur included. along with a lacquered plaque claiming that this would be the best game I would ever experience during 2026. That is a very bold claim, so I lowered my expectations and decided to give it a fair shot. In hindsight, that was a huge mistake, because this game genuinely blew me away. Titanium Court blends genres in a way that seems impossible until you see it in action. Static MS Paint rotoscope imagery collides with grainy minimalistic pixel art. The storytelling of a visual novel transitioned into an RPG exploration point-and-click discovery game, also with Match 3-inspired RTS strategy, resource management, and survival elements, sounds crowded. But trust me here, it works. Not just works, it bounces off one another in a deliberate, confident way completely unlike anything else out there. The claims that were made before I received it were honestly spot on. This is easily one of the most memorable games that I've played recently. You take on the role of the fairy queen of the court, struggling to return home while a relentless tide threatens to erase both you and your subjects repeatedly. All of these systems interconnect, and the themes reinforce those mechanics, and as a result, it is a strange, clever, and unforgettable experience that I am eager to continue exploring. I feel that explaining it this way does not really quite do it justice. It's something you will not fully understand until you play it for yourself, and that sense of mystery is part of what makes Titanium Court so good. As you die, become reborn, tackle the political struggles of your kingdom, and lead them all to victory. You enjoy puzzles, and so do most people, but it's the clever ones that truly leave an impression. The best puzzles layer mechanics, impose strict limitations, and challenge you to mix in ideas, retry solutions, and second-guess yourself until everything finally clicks together. Tracastrophe offers exactly that. Each stage will immerse you in a static linear setup centered around trains, tracks, bounces, turns, and strict constraints. Your goal is to guide the train to the end of the stage as quickly and smoothly as possible by putting the tracks down yourself. Every solution requires careful planning and thought, rewarding precision over brute force. Some of these stages were real brain teasers, which did leave me scratching my head. Going in, I did not expect the game to offer much depth, but I was completely mistaken. Tracastrophe is smart, confident in its own design, and far more clever than it initially lets on. Tumor Necrosis feels like a mashup of House of the Dead with some genuinely wild concepts. It even gives players the option to show nudity or use one of the most unhinged censorship options I've seen in a game recently, that being the act of physically ripping out the offending content while supporting your choice wholeheartedly. This choice alone highlights the personality and effort that Chicken Hat poured into this low-poly trip through a decaying world filled with the undead. For those unfamiliar, House of the Dead and similar titles are classic on-railed arcade shooters. These games guide you through various locations while requiring you to quickly and accurately shoot everything on the screen for massive points, which was quite popular with intentionally clunky controls, hilariously bad voice acting, reload mechanics, and arcade-style difficulty spikes. It has always been a crazy and niche genre. I wouldn't currently label Tumor Necrosis as a direct successor to those classics, but I do believe what it had to showcase was well done. It was strong, and personality woven into the story and scenes makes it stand out in ways that many other shooters during this event could not. Firaxis is a super casual parasitic virus game where you play as a parasite making its way towards the core of an organic planet. In just 5 turns, you will chew through blood vessels, skin, and enamel, aiming to achieve a high enough score to survive while also avoiding the hazards, all in a style reminiscent of Balatro, yet again another oversaturated genre, of course. Compared to most games, Firaxis is more on the relaxed side when it comes to the experience. It features a great soundtrack and an engaging pixel art world built around simple concepts, as it is easy to pick up and to engage with it almost immediately with no learning curves. However, the upgrade system could certainly benefit from some tuning. Once a card is fully upgraded, there doesn't appear to be any form of way to manually alter those upgrades. The only option is to remove the most recent upgrade that it has, which limits player control once they have committed to something previously. Simple small adjustments in this area would greatly enhance player flexibility. One surprisingly forgotten entry was Wanderberg, so to see it pop up again for me was exciting. It's a blend of different genres, combining action roguelike elements with growth mechanics that allow you to avoid larger foes and to conquer smaller castles, elites, and even certain mini-bosses. As you roam this world, you ram into other castles, gather sheep and farmers, absorb the enemy units and gain their powers, grow bigger, and survive for as long as possible. This game is hectic, fast-paced, and also minimalistic, making it very easy to pick up and play. However, there were some balancing issues and a few personal concerns with it. The ram attack feels overpowered, and the gold acquisition is relatively low, which can make the progression here feel like a huge grind, and everything in the game leads their shots into where you will soon be, meaning it is very easy to avoid enemy powers unless you have poor handling of your current build. Overall, I still found the gameplay to be enjoyable, even if I often relied on the ram attack. I could still see myself coming back and tackling it with the full release. I just hope that there will be more to explore in the future. Whiskers Wish was a delight thanks to its flick shot-based gameplay, a mechanic I rarely encounter despite its effectiveness and enjoyment in turn-based systems. Whether found in mobile games or broader strategy titles, this concept often doesn't receive enough attention, so its presence here immediately stood out, since it's not being oversaturated by slop. The game is clearly designed for casual cat lovers, revolving around a heartwarming story about abandoned kittens, forming new friendships, and working together to fulfill the wishes of their mother and also their colony. Its style is cute, although it could benefit from some refinement, particularly in navigating menus and equipping cardboard boxes or passive effects. It has its foot in the door, willing to show you what it can accomplish. Despite all of these rough edges, and with some bugs I did manage to find, the game was enjoyable to play. I would love to see where it goes further, be that more challenge or just more cuteness, especially if it explores this creative flickshot combination. Well, this is going to be an info dump for me. Let's take a moment to reflect. Any game that even slightly resembles Star Fox 64 immediately will grab my full attention, as that game is untouchable and the pinnacle of the genre and quite literally the era even up until now. Nothing has truly matched it since, not now, nor over the last 29 years. It's almost been 3 decades. So when Wild Blue Skies appeared on the scene, it quickly became a serious point of interest for me, especially with X Zodiac also grabbing my attention in the same space just in the past year. There has been a lot of hype and memes surrounding this particular game, which made it surprising to see the demo released so early. Personally, I believe it should spend all the time that it needs in development. The demo starts you off on Mission 2, which did not resonate well with me. A stronger introduction would have been beneficial, perhaps with a curated stage or a character-driven setup to better showcase the world and its crew before diving into mid-mission gameplay, where you don't really care about the characters nor do you have any idea how to play. On the presentation side, it is impressive. The animation is excellent and the map shows branching paths. The voice acting is top-notch, and it's clear that Thorn will be a huge thorn in our sides, effectively taking on the role of the Slippy equivalent. The character banter here changes based on how much damage they all take during a mission, which is a fantastic touch that adds real immersion.
I've got some damage, but this ain't my first rodeo.
Just a scratch or two.
I'm in rough shape.
I'm doing great.
This captures the essence of Star Fox perfectly. The characters feel alive and present with you based on your performance, be they injured or full of life. However, judging the gameplay is tricky since the demo only consisted of a 5-minute mission. It's essential to enable continuous fire in the settings, as otherwise the shooting feels off. The demo stage itself feels very generic. It's not bad, but it's not memorable either. So I can't say it was impressive, as there is a risk of overwhelming players with the effects like falling pillars and waves, which can take away from the actual game itself this early on when you're still learning how to play it. Even after playing multiple times the same stage for about 15 minutes, it never really changed. It still felt generic, outside of the shift in character dialogue. I will remain optimistic, as the foundation is there. It's the closest thing we will ever get to a true Star Fox experience backed by a big publisher like Humble Bundle. However, the demo did not effectively communicate that fantasy it was aiming to deliver. Star Fox style games strive on how they feel and how they play, not just by how they look. If the team behind the development can refine the gameplay and deliver better curated stages, be that through the community's feedback, QA testing, or just asking themselves, are they having fun? Then Wild Blue Skies could evolve into something truly special, a genuine successor to a beloved series that Nintendo has yet to reclaim for its dedicated, albeit niche, fanbase. I am not a political person, but Wild City takes that concept and mixes it together with deck building and hex-based strategy and turns it into something more delightfully chaotic. Here you will follow Mika, an ambitious candidate vying to become the mayor. To win, you will have to rally citizens of all kinds, that being birds and reptiles and everything in between, combining their powers to crush your opposition. Even if that means causing mass collateral damage to your own campaign, you'll do everything in your power to achieve your goals, just like some of the worst leaders in history, right? Each turn you will shuffle your deck and add 3 random tiles onto the board to place them and trigger combos and chain effects, within a time limit or until the board is completely filled. For example, a snake will kill a bird, which then drops meat, and then a chef's stall will process that meat, resulting in a spike in your campaign's cash, the cash in which you need to raise to succeed. Every stage encourages creative thinking without bogging you down in micromanagement or rush timers. Boss fights challenge you to link combos strategically, rewarding careful planning despite the randomness of each draw. On top of this, the game looks fantastic. Wild City is clever, unpredictable, and surprisingly satisfying to play through, as it blends political absurdity with tactical gameplay in a way that keeps each run feeling fresh as you look to combine the best builds possible. You Know the Drill is yet again another incremental game in a crowded genre, but it manages to do a few things better than most. Here it would have to be the sound design and the satisfying music that's relaxing that enhances both the manual and automated gameplay, making it feel rewarding to play, rather than putting yourself to sleep as you play through it. While it's not going to redefine the genre, it effectively captures the core mechanics well, making it enjoyable to keep playing as a player. With its low poly visuals, smooth automation, and satisfying audio cues, this game stands out as one of the more enjoyable incremental titles that you can play in short bursts, though there's still a strong chance that you will eventually grow tired of it. It's the few of its genre that you might find yourself wanting to spend more time with, even if it ultimately is a casual but huge time sink.
There's a new assignment, Cascade. I was supposed to give you the brief.
This is a meteor storm, not the missing persons division.
My employer has placed me in an impossible position.
You'll do everything I say. The Oprah's going to hang me by the toes.
They're staring right at us, unblinking.
Did you love Disco Elysium? Well, you're not alone in that regard. So many of us did. I played it, you played it, and everybody else played it. At least I would hope so. At the very least, you know what it is. I personally played it back during its early access phase, before voice acting was ever implemented, which made it quite a time investment for somebody like myself who often struggles with reading unless fully capable of being engaged with the characters and its world. Now in enters Zero Parades, a game that captures the essence of what made Disco Elysium special by the very same developers. It delivers on the mystery and progression with drawn-out exploration of personality, disassociation, and of course, existential collapse, effectively transforming a novel into a gripping masterpiece that'll have your hair standing on end. Within the first hour of the story, following your partner's sudden zeroing out, I felt the sharp wit and humor were palpable. The anxiety-inducing stat checks were present, echoing what made its predecessor so well thought out. While I wasn't a fan of Disco Elysium's ending, it seems the creators have learned from their past experiences and mistakes and crafted something that feels more immersive and thoughtfully constructed this time around. The sudden reveal caught me off guard. It was a genuine surprise that added depth to the narrative. I'm definitely inclined to give Zero Parade a chance, as it felt like it was trying to draw me in and keep my attention. I'm excited to see where this journey takes me next, and I hope that the ending this time around doesn't feel so ambiguous and left to our interpretation. As we wrap up the Winter Steam Next Fest of 2026, let us not forget the true essence of what we've experienced. We've uncovered not just games, but the heart and soul behind them, the passion, the creativity, the commitment of developers who had the audacity to wake up one day and dare to dream about their creations and bring those dreams into reality, our realities. While the digital indie field may feel saturated with noise, algorithms, AI, and imitations, we have tried to illuminate real treasures, the genuine artifacts of artistry that deserve your attention. Every single title featured in this event stands as a testament to creative effort. By taking the time to explore these hidden gems, we are not merely enjoying entertainment, we are supporting a community of innovators who pour their hearts into their craft, whether that's a 30-minute loop or a 60-hour adventure. If even one of these games resonated with you, I urge you to take action and wishlist it, discuss it, and share it with your friends and others. Your voice alone can help to amplify the stories that these developers, writers, and artists are trying to convey, ensuring that they echo beyond the confines of major marketing budgets and your popular paid-for streamers. Remember, the gaming world is vast but navigatable. If you ever find yourself overwhelmed by options and in search of something meaningful, I am one of few that are here to help you sift through the chaos. My dedication to showcasing genuine talent will continue, so you never have to feel lost in the sea of choices, wasting your money on something fruitless. As we close this chapter of the Winter Steam Next Fest of 2026, I leave you with this reassurance, that as long as there are developers pouring their passions into their work, I will be here to seek them out, unearthing the gems that you might otherwise overlook, and not only showcasing you or telling you, but physically providing you with the means to find them with a click of a button in the comment section below, as I truly do not want to waste your time by having you type it out yourself. I would like to thank you for still being a part of this long but slow journey that takes months to put together. Even if it is still only a handful of you, I hope that we can continue to support one another on a quest to seek out creativity in all of its forms in a world full of opportunities.